This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
We open today with some breaking news.
Reports say at least 2 people are killed in a shooting at a high school in Georgia.
Law enforcement responded to reports of an active shooting at Apalachee High School in Barrow County, about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta, shortly before 10:30 a.m. Law enforcement said a suspect is in custody. The school released the students to their families following a hard lockdown.
The White House said President Biden has been briefed on the shooting. The mayor of Winder and the Georgia governor are both following the situation.
This is a developing story, and we will keep you updated.
That's right. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is giving a press conference to media right now. We're going to tune into that first.
This was the progression that was there was supposed to continue with one fell swoop. We had a lot of obstacles to get down to Rafah in the Philadelphia corridor. Took us about 3 months. But the idea was to do it very fast, and we did it. Now, once we've done it, obviously we're going to keep it. You ask, why, if it was so important for you, did you vote for the disengagement? Number one, I voted in a capital, in the Knesset, for, I was finance minister. I wanted to do some important reforms that revolutionize the Israeli economy. You can see it in the skyline of Tel Aviv and Israel's other cities. Basically a free market reforms. And I was caught in a quandary because I wanted to complete those reforms, but I knew that once the government actually votes to tear out the communities and to get out, that's it. My reforms would be stymied. Israel would not have would not become the technological and economic powerhouse that it became. So the question was, and the government didn't quite do this. They were careful. The government of which I was a part, they basically said, okay, we haven't decided yet on whether we leave. What we're going to do is create the possibility by the Knesset bills that if we decide to leave, there will be compensation for those who leave. That was the vote, the famous vote that people show on television. So anyway, when the actual vote came in the cabinet to leave, I said, you have to stay in there. You cannot leave the Philadelphia corridor. And I resigned from the government. So I voted against it. That's important. You asked another question.
Secondly, can you rule out resettling Israeli civilians in Gaza after?
Well, the May 27th Israeli proposal, the May 27th American proposal, said that did not contradict in any way our going into the Rafah crossing. We talked with the Americans. We said in a number of conversations we have to deal with the southern barrier. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to deal with it. But it doesn't contradict. There's no contradiction between that and the May 27th proposal. And we're quite clear about it. And I think the Americans know our position quite well. As far as resettling, I don't think it's a realistic goal. I said it. I said it in front of my cabinet. I haven't changed my view. And the people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Marie Finoshina, RT. Mr. Prime Minister, we've heard a lot today about Philadelphia corridor. I have one very specific question.
What do you represent, sorry?
RT, Russia Today Television. Was the Israeli control over the Philadelphia corridor ever mentioned in any of the versions of the deal that Hamas accepted? And today, is it the only obstacle to the deal, the only disagreement between the sides, or there are other disagreements? Thank you very much.
Well, there's a premise in your question that is simply wrong. You say, was it mentioned in the deal that Hamas accepted? Hamas didn't accept the deal. On the May 27th proposal, they had 29 changes, corrections, 29, which effectively vitiated any of them from any meaning. It was a rejection. In fact, a detailed rejection of the deal. So while we accepted it as is, we didn't make any changes, and I didn't bring any new condition. anything that contradicts anything that is said there, Hamas basically wiped the floor with it. I mean, they wouldn't accept it. They didn't accept that, and they didn't accept the bridging proposal. And Al-Khia, who is the deputy, Sinwar's deputy, said 2 days ago, so we remain steadfast. What do we want? No, they didn't accept it. No, they didn't. Again, you want the facts, okay? So the fact is, they rejected the May 20th. They said they accepted it, but they have 27 or 29 rather corrections. You know, that's like I don't know. The German government saying we accept the American proposal, but we're going to stay in Berlin. We're going to control Germany. You're going to go out, and we can resupply ourselves. But we accepted your proposal. It doesn't mean anything. They put in 29 corrections that essentially was a sound and detailed rejection of the deal. I don't care, you know, how they frame it for public purposes. It's meaningless. We know the truth. And again, they flatly rejected the bridging proposal. And yesterday, or 2 days ago, Al-Khia flatly rejected it again. And he says, what does he say? He basically says, Israel has to get out, everything, including the Philadelphia corridor, and we can rearm ourselves and do October 7th again and again and again. So it's not that they accepted it. You asked the second question, which is? Is Philadelphia corridor and... Oh, is it the only obstacle? No, it's not. In fact, everything. You know, we have the Philadelphia corridor. We have the what's the ratio of hostages to civilians to terrorists who are released? Do we have a veto power over these terrorists because some of them committed the worst atrocities you can imagine? Should they come back to Judea, Samaria, or can we take them out of the country, and so on and so on and so on? I mean, the whole thing has not been resolved. Hamas has rejected everything. And we're trying to find some area to begin the negotiations. They refuse to do that. 2 days ago, he said, no, there's nothing to talk about. So I hope that changes, because I want those hostages out. I want those families, I want those mothers to see their loved ones. I don't want to see a repetition of what I saw in Ashkelon. You know, these tortured souls. I want them to have happiness, just like the ones that we rescued, we were able to rescue. We brought 117 people alive. And by the way, I insisted in the first deal, we talked about 50, and I said, no, we're going to get 30 more out. And I talked to President Biden, he helped, and I appreciate it. And we brought it up from 50 to 80. That's 80 souls that came back to life. Their families came back to life. So, look, I'll do everything I can to get these people out. But the pressure should be directed where it belongs. It's not on Israel. It's on Hamas. Thank you all. You've been very, very patient. Thank you.
All right, that was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu there, just gave a press conference.
That's right. He's speaking as pressure is mounting on him. We saw hundreds of thousands of protesters on the streets of Israel demanding a ceasefire at any cost necessary over the weekend. One of the things that's holding up a ceasefire is the Philadelphia corridor on the southern border of Gaza, the border that it shares with Egypt, which historically has been the corridor through which Hamas brings in weapons, supplies, tunnel building equipment.
Yeah, that's right. And really an emphasis from Netanyahu there that he is putting all of the blame on the lack of a ceasefire on Hamas and what he says is Hamas's inability to accept any sort of agreement. Also mentioning that, of course, he wants to bring all the hostages back.
That's right. It's really a difficult situation because Hamas, of course, wants to go on existing and be able to have power, and that's exactly what Israel does not want. And so we're going to have an interview about it later. I'm curious what he'll say. It seems like there's a stalemate there in the ceasefire deal situation. Moving on, protests continue in Israel today, those protests that I mentioned. Demonstrators are mounting pressure on the government to bring home the remaining hostages. Protesters gathered in front of the headquarters of Netanyahu's Likud party in Tel Aviv. They want him and his cabinet to close a deal to release the hostages held by Hamas. The government's stance on the negotiations has frustrated allies, including the United States. It's also causing rifts within the Netanyahu administration.
We are here to call to our government, to Hamas, to all over the world. Do everything you can. We have to do a deal now, to seal a deal now. We can't wait. We will be on the streets until they come back.
Today's action comes after protests escalated over the weekend when 500,000 people took to the streets. Police clashed with demonstrators, arresting some of them. Law enforcement said people were violating public order and disrupting traffic. Police also said some protesters used smoke grenades while blocking a highway. Hamas is still holding over 100 hostages. Israeli officials estimate that a third of them have died.
The investigation into the withdrawal from Afghanistan is coming to a head. The House Foreign Affairs Committee issued a subpoena for Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday. The committee members are requesting he appear during a September 19th hearing to discuss its report on the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan. Committee Chairman Michael McCaul says Blinken has refused previous requests to appear before the committee. McCaul has criticized the Biden administration for how the withdrawal played out, including the Abbey Gate bombing, which left 13 service members dead. McCaul is set to release his committee's report detailing the findings of their 3-year investigation next week. The State Department released its own report last year. It said the decision to pull all U.S. troops from Afghanistan had detrimental consequences and that both Trump and Biden administration officials shared some of the blame. Moving on now, the local sheriff is holding a press conference with regard to the shooting that just happened in Georgia. Here's what they say.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Sheriff Judge Smith. I'm the sheriff of Barrow County Sheriff's Office. We're standing on the campus of Apalachee High School here at Barrow County Schools. First and foremost, I want to lift up our community. I want to give our sympathies to our community, our school system, our kids, our parents that had to witness this today. Obviously, what you see behind us is an evil thing today. At about 9:30 this morning, we received the first call that there was an active shooter on this campus. We're not releasing any information as far as injuries, but we have multiple injuries. This is a very, very fluid investigation. It's very early. And I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody, and we are asking for your patience as the media to please let us get the facts that we need to make sure we get this right. Again, I've asked the GBI to help us, the sheriff's office, to help us along with this. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not going to answer questions after this is over with. But I wanted to give you the respect and our community respect to let them know what was going on initially. We're in the process of reunifying our students with their parents. Obviously that's chaotic, but we want to be respectful of them and their privacy as well. I want to thank the state, the federal agencies, the local agencies that showed up today. As you can see, the multiple EMS and fire from other agencies that responded today. Again, I ask that you lift up Barrow County Schools, lift up Apalachee, lift up our agencies. This is going to take multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened. But I wanted to give you a statement. It is our hope, in conjunction with these people behind us, that we can give you another statement around 4 o'clock, because I know you have to go back on the air. That is my hope. But I wanted to be fluid with you all, understanding that it's fluid as well with this investigation. I appreciate you being patient with us. Again, it's very active and is ever developing. Every minute it's developing on what we're finding. So we're going to have releases from other schools. Again, we ask that you be patient with us. Please be patient with us. And hopefully I can give you more information or more better information if you will, this afternoon. Thank you all for coming out here. We'll be back shortly, okay?
Sheriff, it's been widely reported that people are dead. Is that true?
I'm not releasing any information. We have multiple injuries. I'm not releasing any information. Guys, I'm not going to answer any more questions this time, okay? Thank you.
Media, I just want to let everyone know that, as the sheriff indicated, right now the priority right now is trying to get the students back with their families. We will be holding a news conference at 4 o'clock. If you're not already following us on Twitter, X, make sure you're following us. We'll be providing updates then. I know there are a lot of details, investigative details. You want more information. That is what the investigators are actively working on right now. Anything to add?
Yeah, so the idea will be to be back here at 4 o'clock, but keep an eye on our social media. If that changes, you'll know it. We'll be able to address, hopefully answer more questions for you, okay? Or be in a position to give you more answers. We'll just have to see how things go.
We just realized this was happening. Telling us how many people, what you know about that.
We're not in any kind of position. The sheriff's made his comments. We'll leave it at that. By 4 o'clock, we hope to have a better picture, a bigger, so you can better comprehend what's going on. Okay? We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Las autoridades no quisieron dar más información con respecto a esto.
That was local law enforcement there in Georgia after a shooting that happened around 10 a.m. this morning in a high school. They are reporting multiple people are injured, that they have a suspect in custody, and they're basically saying they're not going to answer any questions at the end of that conference, at the end of that press conference, because the situation is just so fluid. It just happened less than 3 hours ago.
That's right. They did say very early investigation right now, asking the public and the media for patience. But they did mention there will be another press conference later this afternoon where hopefully there will be some more answers.
That's right. Next, we are going to a White House press conference. The Justice Department is accusing Russia of meddling in the 2024 elections. Let's tune into that conference now.
13-count superseding indictment. In Arizona, a man sent a state election official a bomb threat warning that if she did not resign within 2 days, quote, the explosive device impacted in her personal space would be detonated. In March, the man was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for making that threat. In Maricopa County, Arizona, an elections official, a county attorney, and their families were threatened by a defendant who called for, quote, a mass shooting of poll workers and election officials in precincts he believed had, quote, suspect results. His revolting comments included, quote, dead children burn into the memories of people. The county attorney who had been targeted later reported that he, his wife, and 4 children had been assigned round-the-clock protection and issued body armor in response to the threat. And the elections official who was targeted said in a victim impact statement that, quote, while I am the person directly threatened by this case, the impact of such threats is felt by a much larger community, the thousands of committed election workers who operate our democratic processes. When threats are made against any election worker, the impact reverberates throughout the entire community. That defendant was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. In recent months, our enforcement actions have continued. In July, we secured the guilty plea of an Alabama man who repeatedly threatened to kill Maricopa County election workers and officials. In one particularly chilling message, he said, quote, you better not come in my church, my business, or send your kids to my school. You are stupid if you think you are safe. His sentencing is scheduled for next month. Also in July, the Justice Department secured a 14-month sentence for a man who sent a death threat to a Michigan election worker. In a voicemail, he said, quote, 10 million plus patriots will surround you when you least expect it. And he added, we'll kill you. Less than 2 weeks ago, we charged and arrested a Colorado man for allegedly threatening the lives of election officials, judges, and law enforcement officials in both Colorado and Arizona. As I have said before, and I will reiterate again today, these cases are a warning. If you threaten to harm or kill an election worker or official or volunteer, the Justice Department will find you, and we will hold you accountable. In a democracy, people vote and argue and debate, often loudly, in order to achieve the policy outcomes they desire. And the Justice Department will continue to relentlessly protect the rights of all Americans to peacefully express their opinions, beliefs, and ideas. But the promise of our democracy is that people will not employ violence to achieve their preferred outcomes. The public servants who administer our elections must be able to do their jobs without fearing for their lives. That is why this task force has been marshaling the full resources of the Justice Department to aggressively investigate and prosecute threats targeting election workers, officials, and volunteers. And we will continue to do so in the months ahead, when the task force will build on the partnerships with state and local election officials and law enforcement officials tasked with protecting them. Since March, the task force has participated in more than 25 convenings, engagements, trainings, tabletop exercises, including both with our law enforcement partners and with our partners in the election community nationwide. Over the next several weeks, task force representatives will be on the ground meeting with election workers. And in early November, both in advance of and after Election Day, the FBI will be hosting federal partners at its headquarters command center to address events, issues, and potential crimes related to the elections in real time. Election officials and administrators do not need to navigate this threat environment alone. We are here to support them and to make sure they can safely carry out their critical work. Protecting our democracy and protecting our elections was a founding purpose when the Justice Department was established in 1870. The department answered that charge then, and we will answer that charge today as we confront those who would use violence or threats of violence to attack those who administer our elections. And now I'd like to ask the Deputy Attorney General to make some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney General, and good afternoon, everyone. I also want to start by expressing my sympathies to the families who have been impacted by yet another horrific act of gun violence, this time in Winder, Georgia. I also want to extend the department's support for and solidarity with the members of law enforcement and community members who are responding to this tragedy. Now, we are fewer than 65 days out from the election, and this convening reflects the diverse and aggressive threat landscape that we face and the breadth of the department's work that we are doing to combat those threats. In our increasingly polarized environment, we're seeing continued threats toward election workers, those who ensure that we all can exercise our most fundamental of rights, the right to vote. And we are identifying dangerous foreign actors working to spawn division, discord, and disinformation, particularly across social media. Threats of violence to public officials, including election workers, represent a clear and present danger to our democratic process. That's why we established the Election Threats Task Force to investigate and prosecute the growing number of threats directed at the public servants who make our elections possible. Dedicated career prosecutors and FBI agents carry out this work across the country every single day, working hand in glove with state and local law enforcement. In recent months, as was just detailed, the task force has continued to prosecute threats toward public servants, and we will continue working tirelessly with our law enforcement partners to ensure threat actors answer for their actions. Because a threat to any election official, worker, or volunteer is at bottom a threat to our democracy. The Election Threats Task Force, convened today, fits into a larger effort by the department to safeguard our elections. A critical element of that work includes combating foreign malign influence activity as illustrated by the actions we've announced today. Our foreign adversaries' primary goal is to undermine confidence in our democratic institutions and values, including working covertly to influence and manipulate our elections. Today's actions, as laid out by the Attorney General, reaffirm that Russia remains a predominant foreign threat to our elections. And as the intelligence community has publicly reported, and as I have previously warned, Iran also is accelerating its efforts to influence our elections, including the presidential election. Today's actions reaffirm the department's ongoing commitment to detect, investigate, expose, and hold accountable all those who perpetrate foreign malign influence schemes. In our work combating and exposing actors affiliated with Russia, Iran, or any foreign actor seeking to influence our election will continue day in and day out without fear or favor. I'm grateful to the members of law enforcement, the prosecutors, and all the public officials working around the clock to protect our election process and to bring to justice those who seek to undermine our democracy. With that, I'll pass it to Director Wray.
Thank you to the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General for bringing the task force together again for this meeting. Before I dive into things, as you heard, FBI agents are on scene in Winder, coordinating with and supporting local law enforcement. Our hearts go out to the victims, the community, and all those affected by this awful, awful act. Here with the task force, I know this group is busy year-round working with our partners, especially our brothers and sisters in local and state law enforcement, who are often the first line of defense in protecting election workers from violence and threats of violence. And as we get closer and closer to Election Day, we're going to continue to step up our collective efforts to protect those charged with ensuring our elections run smoothly. As I've said before, election workers, many of whom are volunteers and all of whom are public servants, are the lifeblood of our elections. And we're committed to ensuring that threats directed at election workers receive the swift and thorough response they deserve. Of course, our commitment to protecting elections and Americans' right to vote extends to an even broader array of threats. Threats the FBI, as both a law enforcement and intelligence agency, will continue to work 24/7 to uncover and disrupt. That means aggressively combating attempts by foreign adversaries to undermine confidence in U.S. elections, sow discord, and damage our democratic institutions. The actions announced today focus on Russia, but Russia is by no means the only adversary we've seen try to meddle in our society and democratic processes. Just last month, for instance, the FBI, working with the broader intelligence community and CISA, called out Iran for targeting and attempting to compromise former President Trump's campaign. And we continue to keep a close eye on China's efforts to denigrate down-ballot candidates it sees as a threat, and on their broader efforts to sow discord. So whether it's China, Iran, Russia, or any other country, attempts to meddle in our elections or destabilize our free and open society represent attacks on our democracy. And as long as foreign adversaries keep engaging in these hostile influence campaigns, they're going to keep running into the FBI. Today, we're exposing 2 illegal Russian covert influence operations targeting the American public. The first was run by RT, formerly known as Russia Today. Now, for years, the Russian government has used RT to seed and amplify their propaganda narratives around the world. And while RT America suspended its official operations in the U.S. back in early 2022, our investigation revealed that since at least last year, RT has used people living and working inside the U.S. to facilitate contracts with American media figures to create and disseminate Russian propaganda here. the content was pitched as legitimate independent news when, in fact, much of it was created in Russia by RT employees who work for the Russian government. The second operation reveals even more malign activities by companies working under the direction and control of the Russian government. Companies that created media websites to trick Americans into unwittingly consuming Russian propaganda. Today's announcement exposes those companies and their influence operations that relied on AI-generated content, influencers, and paid social media advertisements to drive internet traffic to their sites and target Americans with disinformation. As of noon today, we've seized those sites, rendered them inoperable, and made clear to the world what they are: Russian attempts to interfere in our elections and influence our society. As the lead agency for investigating threats to U.S. elections, the FBI is focused on ensuring that our laws are respected and enforced. And when we learn that adversaries overseas are trying to hide who they are and where their propaganda is coming from as part of campaigns to deliberately sow discord, we're going to continue to do everything we can to expose their hidden hand and disrupt their efforts. I'll close by saying thank you again to everyone on the task force for the support you're providing us and for everything you're doing to instill confidence in our elections and ensure they're conducted in a way that is safe and fair and legitimate for the American people. Thank you.
Matt, do you have something?
Sorry. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General Garland, Deputy Attorney General Monaco, and FBI Director Wray for your commitment to safeguarding our elections. With your leadership and your support, the Criminal Division's Public Integrity Section continues to spearhead the Election Threats Task Force. There is no mission more critical to the Criminal Division than deterring, disrupting, and punishing criminal threats to our elections. Since we last met with department leadership in May, the task force has filed charges or secured convictions against defendants in Arizona, Colorado, Kentucky, and Michigan, and opened new investigations across the country. The task force is also preparing for Election Day. Our attorneys are meeting with election officials around the country and recently hosted a training for FBI and DOJ personnel nationwide to address threats of violence to the election community and other criminal threats to our elections. And we are continuing to surge additional resources to these efforts. The Public Integrity Section has added 5 attorneys to support its election crimes branch so that we can rapidly respond to reports of election crimes. As we approach Election Day, we will ensure that the team has all the resources it needs to perform its essential work. I could not be prouder of the Election Threats Task Force. As we move forward, I am confident that their dedicated efforts will continue to put us in the best position possible to support and protect the election community. With that, I will turn it over to Assistant Attorney General Matt Olson for the National Security Division.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. As you know, one of the foremost missions of the National Security Division is to protect our elections and our democratic processes from foreign interference. As the American people decide how to exercise their fundamental right to vote in free and fair elections, our laws demand that citizens have transparency regarding the origin of messages from foreign sources. That transparency empowers individuals to evaluate information and to make informed decisions for themselves. We will defend the integrity of our public discourse against any who would seek to break the law and to exert covert influence, regardless of viewpoint or whether that actor is Russia, Iran, or any other nation. Today's charges serve as a reminder that the Justice Department remains steadfast in safeguarding our democracy from foreign interference and protecting the constitutional rights of all Americans. Thank you.
For Attorney General Garland and Director Wray. Attorney General Garland, Russia today sent a statement to Fox News and some other outlets here, mocking the situation. They had 5 bullet points or 6 bullet points. The first said, ha, 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 ha. 2016 wants its cliches back. in all seriousness, there is a subsection of the country that when they hear Russian interference, they may believe that it's not true, it's not a real thing. How do you assure people this is a real situation?
I'm sure that was much funnier in the original Russian, but for us, it's not funny. This is deadly serious, and we are going to treat it accordingly.
Director Ray, if I can ask you, you've been talking about China for years now and the threat of China. Also Iran, you both briefly mentioned Iran and potential influence there. What is your message directly to the leaders of China and Iran who are watching through that camera lens right now? What do you want to say to them over the next few months and beyond?
Knock it off. As long as adversaries keep trying to influence and interfere in our society and our democratic processes, they're going to keep running into the FBI, and we're going to keep calling it out. And I think nations around the world have started to also see the same activity. And it's not the kind of activity we would expect from nations that want to play in the first world space.
Next question, Alana.
General Garland, I'm wondering if you can talk about how the Russian effort to influence the election has changed from prior election cycles. What new strategies are you seeing the Russians deploy this year?
Well, I'll talk generally about it, and I'll turn it over to the FBI director and National Security Director if they want to chime in. Look, it's an acceleration of, and it's an increased sophistication of, and it's use of AI and cyber techniques that were not available in earlier elections. So we're just seeing more and more. It's coming faster and faster. It's now AI fueled. They're now using bot farms in a way that was not possible before. And therefore, it's a bigger threat than it ever was before.
I would just say that the reality is that Russia has meddled in our society and tried to sow discord for decades. Really what we're seeing is just more tools in the toolbox with the advent of technology. First, it was social media, which provided a bullhorn, and now, as you've heard, AI is its own amplifier. And so whether it's shell companies, fake personas, secret distribution networks, the point is not the message itself. The point is the hidden hand of the Russian government, which deceives Americans into thinking that they're getting information from American sources when, in fact, it's coming from the Russian government.
Carrie.
Mr. Attorney General, tomorrow is the first hearing in the January 6th case against the former president since the superseding indictment against him. He's called these new charges election interference and a violation of the Justice Department policy against doing something too close to the election. How do you respond to that, and how confident are you that your team has followed instructions from the Supreme Court following that decision?
I stand by the actions of the special counsel. The superseding indictment is an effort to respond to the direct instructions of the Supreme Court as to how to effectuate a new indictment in an ongoing case. The special counsel is required by the regulations to follow the policies of the Justice Department, including the election sensitivities policies, and I'm quite confident that he did so.
Last question, Pierre.
In terms of the Russian interference, can you be more specific in terms of, is it beyond sowing divide, pushing a particular candidate this election cycle? What can you give us a sense about the ultimate goal of these actions?
As I said, the effort in this case is to affect the preferred outcome in the presidential election. The documents that we are unsealing today, including the internal Kremlin documents, I point you to those to see exactly what's involved. More generally, the Director of National Intelligence has testified that Russia's preferences have not changed from the preceding election.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we just heard from Attorney General Merrick Garland, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, as well as FBI Director Christopher Wray, making remarks at a meeting of the DOJ's Election Threats Task Force. We tuned in sort of in the middle there, but we began with Attorney General Merrick Garland giving examples of people who've made threats on election workers, talking about harming them or killing them, who were then arrested by the DOJ.
That's right, and it's important to note there that those first remarks that we tuned into were more about domestic threats to election workers, specifically one of a California man threatening an election official in Maricopa County in Arizona. And that really built up to their main point of that conference there, which is that they will not stand for any election interference, whether that be domestic or international.
That's right. When we went into Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General, speaking about Russia meddling in U.S. elections. This is one of the key parts of this press conference here. She says Russia remains a predominant foreign threat to our elections. And then they tossed it to FBI Director Christopher Wray, who pointed to two influence operations specifically. The first he mentioned was Russia Today, otherwise known as RT. He's saying that they're working with American media, certain individuals in American media, to push Russian narratives and disinformation in the U.S. to interfere with U.S. elections. And the second part, he was saying there's organizations or groups in the U.S. or trying to influence or trick Americans into unknowingly consuming Russian disinformation.
Right, Chris, and just for our viewers out there who might not know what Russia Today or RT is, it is a state-controlled international television network. For anyone out there who may be wondering.
That's right. Thank you.
For sure. And I think a little bit of a touch of humor there as well when one reporter asked Director Wray what his message to foreign entities such as China attempting to meddle in the election, what his message to them would be. And he said, knock it off. You know, that the FBI would always be on their tail if they continue to meddle with elections.
I wouldn't mess with the FBI if they said knock it off to me.
I wouldn't either.
Moving on, reports say at least 2 people are killed in a shooting at a high school in Georgia.
Law enforcement responded to reports of an active shooting at Apalachee High School in Barrow County. This is about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta. It happened shortly before 10:30 a.m. Law enforcement said a suspect is now in custody. The school released the students to their families following a hard lockdown.
The White House said President Biden has been briefed on the shooting. The mayor of Winder and the Georgia governor are both following the situation.
This is a developing story. We will be keeping you updated.
Next, we have with us Robin Barrow, former Georgia congressional candidate, to discuss this atrocious tragedy, one of far too many that we've been hearing. Robin, it's great to have you with us. I'm curious, what do we know so far? You're there. Talk to us.
Yes. So yes, the local news is reporting that we just got an update. Now, unfortunately, there are 4 people who have passed away. The coroner has not identified any of these 4 individuals. There are 3 people additionally who were injured. They said that this is going to take several days, of course, to unpack. They don't expect another update until 4:00 p.m. today. But you know, parents are all very concerned. I was notified. Other parents around me were. This took place about 30 minutes east of me.
Wow. So you're familiar with Winder. You've been there before.
Yes, I have. I've got close friends who live there, and you know, just like any parent, I was getting texts immediately from family and friends asking if my kids were okay, and thankfully my kids are fine. But you know, every day when we send our kids on that school bus, we fear something like this is every parent's greatest fear, that something like this would happen.
Yeah, you're a father of 2 school-age children, if I have you right there. This didn't happen in your boys' school, but it must be just, gut-wrenching for any parent to hear about this anywhere near their own school. What are you thinking? What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It was immediate panic as soon as I got the notifications from the local news. And to be honest with you, I had friends texting me before I found out from the local news, which was even more concerning because I didn't know any information at that point. I just knew that there was a school shooting in my area, which was terrifying. And immediately I was scanning and searching for news stories to find out where and who and information. but I cried. I mean, as any parent would do. I mean, I'm a veteran Army Ranger, but I was crying my eyes out here at just the thought of what these students and parents and faculty are all going through. The aerial photographs of them on that football field. Everybody that's there is now a victim of trauma, and the school will have resources on site to help with all of that trauma. And they will all be most certainly entitled to some PTSD counseling from the school district.
And thank goodness for that. And thank goodness that your boys are okay. I cannot even imagine what you're experiencing right now. I'm curious, have you been to Winder, the school there? Do you know the people in the school, involved in the school, the administration, anybody there?
I do know that school. I do know that school well from robotics competitions that my son, I've got a high school, one in high school and one in middle school, and he's participated in robotics competitions there. I'm not certain, but I think they have magnetometers that were just put in there this past year. I can say for certain that that has happened in DeKalb County, where I live, and in Fulton County. So those are in place. Additionally, I know that Georgia Public Schools have been implementing a clear backpack policy to curb the spread of gun violence in our schools. We're doing what we can. It's going to take probably a generation or two before we actually tackle the tough battle of gun control. But in the meantime, we can be talking about, identifying threats and making sure that the entrances and exits are all locked at all times. Because you recall a shooting last year where a shooter entered from a back door that was propped open ajar. So, we don't have any information yet about how this happened, but we will in the coming days.
I'm wondering about the other schools in the area. Has anyone given you any updates about what they're experiencing? Are there lockdowns in other places?
Yes, so let me explain this. My kids have been in school not quite a month. They entered on August the 5th. And in that time, they've had a level 1 and a level 2 drill for this type of event. A level 3 drill is the one that would be needed for something like this. But level 1 and level 2 drills, the students would have already been briefed on where to go. The faculty would have been briefed on where to go. If you saw the aerials, it looked orderly. I think that the students and faculty had a good order. There was a plan in place. Unfortunately, this has become so common that my kids have had a number of these level 1, 2, and 3 drills, and it's happened there in that school as well. Even though school's only been in session a few weeks, they've already had these drills.
Now, I know this is such a fluid situation, and you're not there on the ground near the school. I mean, you said you're 30 minutes away, but I'm curious, have you had any sense for what the response to this has been like from local law enforcement?
Yes, shock and horror. Of course, Governor Brian Kemp has directed all state resources to the Winder school area and the districts there in Bartow County. But it's the parents all around me. I'm a member of several parents groups and blogs and local blogs, and they're all absolutely up in arms. We've been planning for about a year on the Parent Safety Alliance for an event like this. So these are our worst fears have been realized, and it's close to home. The good news is that there were already systems in place to notify parents in the event of something like this. So you saw them at a rally point. That was key to our planning. Was to get the parents at a rally point, to get them reunited with their school children. So I'm glad to see that some of our planning over the last year is playing out in an event of something horrific like this, because the last thing we want to see are any, parents, it's a natural instinct to fight or flight, and you want to run into that school and make sure that your child is okay, but that could be quite detrimental to the life-saving measures that are taking place inside that school. So the parents knew to stay outside and meet at the rally point and wait to be reunited with their children, and we saw that taking place today.
Wow, that's quite a testament to preparedness measures. And I know schools across the nation have been addressing this kind of issue in advance. God forbid it should actually happen, but it's been happening more and more frequently in recent decades that schools have to address it. And of course, issues like these often all too soon become politicized and then become about certain political issues. I'm curious what you think about how we can ensure, we're still working towards actual real safety here without politicizing this too soon, at least.
It's tough, especially in an election year. I think we're about 63 days away now from a presidential election, right, or the general election right now. So this is tough, and I'm sure that we will have discussions. There will be, you can expect discussions about, should we moderate video games? There's always the discussion about whether music itself is too violent. And there's always, of course, in the aftermath of this, the discussion about whether or not to ban semi-automatic assault rifles, large capacity magazines, bump stocks. I think that ban was just lifted, if I'm not mistaken, by the Supreme Court. So, we will be having those discussions. I hate that they get politicized. And especially, I hate to tell you, it will happen. But I hope that we at least give it a few days enough. We don't even know the names of the fallen students and faculty yet. So I hope that we can at least pay respect and let the coroner and the hospitals do their jobs and respect the privacy of these families long enough before we start politicizing this would be my worst nightmare.
Well, I know people across the country are just right now praying for the families and for the children there in Winder, Georgia. Robin Barrow, I'm so happy that your two boys are safe. That's such good news. And thank you again for your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Absolute tragedy.
Yeah, it's incredible that we have Robin Barrow there to report on it for us. I mean, thank goodness his kids are safe.
Yeah.
And probably most of the kids there, but we do know that there are some injuries and perhaps fatalities.
Yes, absolutely. So sad. I mean, but we'll have to wait for more information to come out.
That's right. This is definitely fast evolving.
Right. Moving on now, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is holding a press briefing alongside National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby. According to sources familiar with the matter, the White House will condemn Russia for using Kremlin-run media and other online platforms to target U.S. voters with disinformation, like we just heard from the previous press briefing just then. Let's tune in right now.
Now turning to my colleague from NSC, who's here to discuss the latest Biden-Harris administration actions today against foreign actors attempting to covertly influence our elections and undermine confidence in our democratic institution. Admiral John Kirby will discuss the coordinated actions we are taking in addition to other foreign policy news of the day. Admiral?
Good afternoon, everybody. I think as you saw today, the Department of Justice, Department of Treasury, and the State Department took a series of coordinated actions against foreign actors associated with the Russian government who are attempting to covertly influence our elections. Specifically, all these federal agencies revealed activities directed and funded by RT, formerly known as Russia Today, to covertly spread Russian government propaganda with the aim of reducing international support for Ukraine, bolstering pro-Russian policies and interests, and influencing voters here in the U.S. And in foreign elections as well. RT is no longer just a propaganda arm of the Kremlin. It is being used to advance covert Russian influence actions. Additionally, the Russian government is laundering influence and information operations through Kremlin-controlled commercial firms, such as the Social Design Agency, that work extensively at the direction and control of the Russian Federation. All of this activity was designed to funnel disinformation through outlets and social media influencers that a certain number of Americans find credible. We will not stand for that. So in addition to the law enforcement actions that were announced just a little bit ago by the Attorney General, the State Department announced a new policy to restrict visas for employees of Kremlin-supported media organizations that are affiliated with these covert activities. And they released a $10 million reward for justice for individuals associated with a Russian hacking group that's named Russian Angry Hackers Did It, or RA-DIT for short, as it's also known. The State Department also designated 6 RT-affiliated entities as foreign missions, a designation that now requires them to report information about their personnel and their property to the United States government. For their part, the Treasury Department is sanctioning 6 executives and officials affiliated with RT, 3 executives associated with other Kremlin-controlled organizations. And additionally, the Treasury Department is designating ANO Dialogue, a Russian government-founded nonprofit that uses artificial intelligence to create and distribute online Russian disinformation for use against election campaigns. The Treasury included ANO Dialogue's subsidiary and its executive officer in its sanctions as well. Now, Russia, of course, is not alone in its desire to destabilize our democracy. As you may recall, just last month, the United States government disclosed that Iran engaged in a series of cyber actions with the intent to gain access to the private communications of former President Trump and his campaign by way of associated political advisors. Those efforts were clearly intended to denigrate former President Trump and to compromise his political campaign. We made it clear then, and we make it clear again today, that this is unacceptable, and we won't stand for it either. Let me close with just two more thoughts, if I could. First, and most importantly, we are committed to protecting our democracy and our elections, regardless of the source or the target trying to interfere with them. As today's actions make clear, we have the ability to monitor these threats, to thwart them, to identify the actors involved, and to hold the actors involved accountable. We will continue to do so. These actions are the result of months of hard investigative and interagency cooperation, and we're grateful for the law enforcement, diplomatic, intelligence, and Treasury professionals who brought it all together. They put the interest of the American people first, right where it belongs. That brings me to my second point. The hard work now must continue. No resting, no waiting, no backing off. The American people can rest assured that the men and women of the federal government are at this very moment laboring to prevent future abuses and interference in our electoral process. But this cannot alone be the work of government. Every citizen bears a hand. We urge all Americans to read through the indictment today. Study the sanctions and the designations that we announced. All of it's online. All of it is readily available to you. Likewise, please take time to consider how you get your news and information. It can be difficult, of course, to be absolutely certain of its authenticity, especially given the covert tactics of groups like RT. But with time, some patience, and a firm reliance on credible and established media outlets, that uncertainty can be greatly reduced. As President Biden has said, democracy can at times be fragile, but it is also inherently resilient. We all need to work together as Americans to ensure that resilience. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. First on this disinformation campaign, can you talk a little bit more about why unveiling this now? And secondly, is this just, do you see this as just the tip of the sword? Is there more out there? And the why now question is basically, I think, in some ways, a lot of Americans would say about Russian disinformation, not surprising. And may, in some ways, question why is the administration doing this so close to the election? And I may be answering my own question a little bit here, but if you could just talk to the timing. And then secondly, has there been any more meetings with senior officials and Israelis today regarding the ceasefire or the situation on the Israel-Lebanon border?
Okay, there's a lot there. On the why now, and I think the Attorney General talked about this. I mean, the actions that they announced today, and of course it was coordinated with the announcements by State and Treasury, all really reflected where they were in the investigative process. And as the Attorney General said, Amr, it's still an ongoing investigation, so I wouldn't rule out anything in terms of any future actions that might be taken. Depends on where this investigation takes us. So the why now was really driven by the progress of the investigation, the certainty they had in what they had uncovered, and the ability that they believe they had to take the actions in a way that were commensurate with the goals of the investigation. So it was all really timed to the investigation, that's all. And you asked for tip of the spear. But let me go back to, you also said people are maybe shrugging about this because, well, it's just, you know, but that's, I mean, obviously people can have their own views about whether they're surprised or not that Russia might be trying to interfere in our election, but we're not taking it lightly. Nobody's shrugging here because it's that important. It's that important to convey to the American people that we are taking the safety and security of our electoral process seriously. So nobody's shrugging about it, and we're going to constantly monitor, as I said, these threats, be able to thwart them when we see them, and identify and hold the actors accountable. On your second question about the ceasefire talks, I have no additional specific meetings to talk about today, except that even today, we are in touch with our counterparts in Qatar, in Israel, and certainly in Egypt about trying to see if we can get a proposal that can be finally culminated and a ceasefire deal can be achieved. So those conversations are active even today.
There was a report that Jake Hochstein and Brett McGurk had a virtual meeting today with Dermer and I think some other Israeli officials. Is that not true?
I won't confirm any specific individual sessions except to tell you that even today there have been ongoing conversations with our counterparts, as you would expect that it would be. So even though there's not Teams meeting in Doha or Cairo right now, it's not like the effort has lapsed.
Thanks, Karine. Thanks, Admiral. On the Russian interference, is there any indication of at what level this has been apparently approved in Russia? Does this go? I mean, does this go up to Putin's level, for example? And secondly, is there any sign of the this disinformation favouring one or other of the candidates in the U.S. election?
We believe Mr. Putin is witting of these actions. As for your second question, I think, look, in Iran's case, it was very clear, as I mentioned in my opening statement, and I think the Attorney General did too, very clear that they were trying to denigrate former President Trump and involve themselves in his campaign to their detriment. I would say, though, what we talked about in Russia, they are certainly trying to sow discord, feed disinformation, and try to put narratives out there through voices that the American people might find credible that support their policies, that support their interests, such as trying to diminish support in Ukraine. So it's very consistent with what we've seen Mr. Putin do in the past.
Thanks, Karine. Thanks, Admiral. So as you alluded to, we've been here before, and after 2020, the administration imposed sweeping sanctions and also took efforts to prevent this sort of behavior. So why are we here again? And what about today's actions will deter future disinformation?
We're here again because actors like Iran and Russia are at it again and continue to believe that it somehow suits their interest to interfere in our electoral process. So we're here because of what they've been doing, and that we're trying to hold them accountable and to make it harder for them to do this. And that's exactly what the actions today, and I'm sure actions to come as appropriate will do. Will make it harder for them. Will it make it completely impossible? Probably not, because they'll find workarounds. I mean, these are actors, in this case driven by the Kremlin itself, that are bound and determined to try to change and influence the way Americans vote when they go in that ballot box. And that's why I said it at the end of my opening statement. Everybody, not just the federal government, but everybody needs to be concerned about this. And everybody needs to bear a hand in pushing back on the influence attempts by Russia.
And then on Israel, we asked Karine, not me, I wasn't here yesterday, but my colleagues asked Karine in many different ways about the president's recent comments with regard to Netanyahu not doing enough to secure a ceasefire deal. So my question is whether he has directly expressed that himself to Netanyahu, that he is not doing enough.
I would say that the conversations with the Prime Minister every time they occur are very direct and very forthright. These are two guys that know each other well, and the President he makes his concerns very plainly known. But for all the things that those two gents may not agree on politically, and maybe not even completely agree on in the conduct of the war, they do agree on the central tenet that Israel needs to be defended, that the Israeli people shouldn't have to live next door to that kind of a threat, and that the United States, and President Biden specifically, is going to continue to stand with Israel as they defend themselves against this threat, and to do everything that we can to try to bring this conflict to a close.
And then one quick one, just for clarification, because a lot continues to happen on this front. When the president is calling...
That was National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby speaking at a press briefing there after being introduced by Karine Jean-Pierre. A lot of talk there, similar to the previous press briefing we just heard about foreign election interference.
That's right. The Justice Department is alleging that Russia is meddling in U.S. elections, just as it did in 2016. They're announcing actions that they're taking to restrict visas of individuals involved in this. We'll get to the specific organizations momentarily. They're designating 6 of them as foreign entities. And one group is called ANO. They're announcing sanctions against this group. They're Russian government founded, and they produce election interference technology. One of the key group that they're pointing to is a news outlet called Russia Today. It's a Russian-backed government outlet that pushes narratives around the world that essentially benefit Russia and their position in Ukraine, as among other things.
That's right. And John Kirby did just emphasize there that the RT has now stepped beyond the line of being a propaganda machine and gone almost on the offensive of sowing discord and disagreement among the American public. A lot of emphasis there also on the fact that an attack on our elections is really an attack on our democracy as a whole.
That's right. And they also spoke about the Iranian hacking of the Trump campaign, specifically to draw attention to how foreign governments have been influencing the U.S. election, even in this election cycle. A reporter asked him about ongoing ceasefire talks. It seemed like he didn't want to spend too much on that. He said that, basically conversations are active even today, sort of emphasizing that the U.S. government is taking measures consistently to achieve a ceasefire deal in the Israel-Hamas war.
That's right. Very good summary there, Chris. Moving on now, today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul told reporters she wanted the head of the Chinese consulate in New York to be removed. And she said she made that request to the federal government. This comes after a former aide to New York governors Kathy Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo was charged with secretly working as an agent for the Chinese Communist Party. Take a listen of Hochul today.
And I had conveyed my desire to have the Consul General from the People's Republic of China in the New York mission expelled. And I've been informed that the Consul General is no longer in the New York mission.
Former Deputy Chief of Staff Linda Sun, who worked for both Hochul and Cuomo, has been charged with several crimes. According to the DOJ's indictment, she is accused of violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy. Federal prosecutors also charged her husband, Chris Hu, with money laundering conspiracy as well, bank fraud conspiracy, along with the misuse of means of identification. Hochul said today her request to remove the Chinese official in New York is to send a message to other officials. When asked today, the State Department said the official was not expelled, but reached the end of his scheduled term. Joining me now to discuss is Sean Lin, member of the Committee of Present Danger China and a former U.S. Army microbiologist. Sean, good to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you for the invitation.
Sean, what role did the consulate in New York play in this entire scheme, according to the DOJ?
According to DOJ's document, there are several officers from the consulate involved, and also there are some proxies. They may not have official titles in consulate, but they are very, very important community member. Like one of the leaders is his name is Zhang Fuying. He's the president for Henan Association. Basically, is Chinese who come from Henan province in China, who live in the New York metro area. And these organizations, they are part of the United Front Work Department, which is important external affairs department that's directly reporting to CCP's Central Committee. So basically, consular members involved and then the local New York community pro-CCP leader involved, and they all involved in communicating with Linda Sun. And some of them give her orders, some give her requests. And so Linda all responded and in favor of the Chinese government or the Chinese Communist Party.
And Linda, as we've mentioned already, she worked for 2 New York governors. So she's been there for a while. Is she the only secret agent for the Chinese Communist Party in New York government or just U.S. government in general, or is this a much more widespread phenomenon?
I think definitely these fall into a grand strategy that the Chinese Communist Party has already implemented for a long time, and also its strategies under the United Front. And I remember actually several years ago, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, when he addressed to a governor's meeting, he clearly mentioned that CCP have intentionally collecting valuable information for these governors from different states, right? They want to know their personal favorites, hobbies, their political affiliations and some of the policies, who are the most important influencer for their policy makings. So Chinese Communist Party is intentionally collecting this information. They want to influence United States politics at the local level, at the county level, as well in the state level. And this case is clearly at the top of the New York state level. So this is definitely a serious alarm for U.S. Local politics. And so this time you see Lin Da-sun case, but there may be other elites being captured. We call it elite capture, right? This is this kind of campaign strategy for the CCP. They want to influence many people who can influence local state politics, and Lin Da-sun is one of them. So from the prosecutor's document, it's not clear when Lin Da-sun started to become the undisclosed or secret agent for the CCP. But it's very surprising. She got her master degrees from Columbia University in 2009, and very soon she became the chief of staff for former New York Assemblywoman Grace Meng, and she's now the congresswoman from New York. So how can she arise so fast and then gradually she walk into the governor's office? So I think in this process, what kind of CCP's influence or even directly involved in her promotion in this process? I think the FBI need to investigate deeper in these issues.
Apart from possible CCP involvement in her promotion, what if we go even further back to her time in Columbia? Do you think it's possible that the Chinese Communist regime has any sort of grasp on Columbia University or other of these top-tier schools in the U.S.?
Well, CCP always influenced Chinese students or scholars in the United States through the so-called Chinese Student Scholar Association in different universities. And these organizations usually are funded by the Chinese consulates in different major regions. So in this way, they can control these students. Of course, CCP sometimes sends spies to lead these kind of organizations. So definitely, there are spies in these U.S. Major universities. But at the same time, many students may be unknowingly being influenced, manipulated, or mind controlled by these CCP agents. So whether Lin Da-sun in this kind of case, we don't know. I think FBI need a lot more deeper investigation. And also, I think many local community organizations need to be under very strict scrutiny by the FBI, especially in New York. Many of the in Chinese we call it Tongxianghui, the people come from the same province, they form association. But the Chinese consulate usually manipulate the community through these kind of association. They sometimes instigate a conflict between the Chinese American versus Taiwanese American. Just like Linda case, she actually, intentionally make the governor public appreciate the donation of 1,000 ventilators from China, but ignore almost 200,000 high-quality masks donated by Taiwan community, right? So this is clear, she's manipulated behind it.
That's right. I think it's important to note there the bigger picture, right? This is not just a story of one single individual. This is a much broader issue affecting a very large swath of the U.S. So I want to move back to this story about Governor Kathy Hochul asking for the head of this consulate to be removed. How big of an embarrassment is this to the Chinese Communist Party?
I think this clearly exposes a grand scheme. The CCP has been working for a long time. They want to influence those top politicians, their top aides, right, in order to influence the U.S. politics. And this time, and if she's an undisclosed agent working for more than a decade, of course, the Chinese government put a lot of efforts on her, right? So this is a a big shame. And also, even the Governor Hochul have to request for the expel of Chinese top consulate. So these can escalate into a top, diplomatic conflict issues. And this is, I think, even the U.S., even the Chinese ambassador to United States will face very, very harsh criticisms on these issues. And basically, they are behind it. They are working with the United Front to influence U.S. politics. So this definitely will make U.S.-China relationship going down here even further.
Sean, I think it really is so concerning to see these recent developments in U.S. local politics, and as well with the press briefings we were just covering with the international election interference from countries such as China, Russia, Iran. So really, there's so much to look out for there. It's really important for Americans to stay vigilant about what's happening. Sean Lin, member of the Committee on China's Dangers Relating to China and former U.S. Army microbiologist, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next, NASA prepares for the Boeing Starliner's return to Earth, but its astronauts are not on board. The uncrewed capsule is scheduled to depart from the International Space Station on Friday.
Nearly $280 billion in value wiped out in a single day for AI chipmaker NVIDIA.
The DOJ has also reportedly launched an antitrust investigation against the tech titan. We have that and more after this break.
Where nature embraces you and fills you with invigorating joy. Treasuring every little moment as these romantic memories gather up to complete our blissful memories together. Mokpo.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
The Kindness is Cool Video Awards are back for their second year. Record and nominate acts of kindness, both big and small, from individuals, families, and communities. Submit your videos on ganjingworld.com with the hashtag KindnessIsCool. Win a $10,000 grand prize and be featured on a New York Times Square billboard. Visit ganjingworld.com and start sharing today. Kindness is cool.
There's always a searching process for beauty. You know it when you see it.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Welcome back. The end of summer might be in sight for some of us, but there's no relief for the West Coast. Forecasters are asking people to brace for more extreme heat. Parts of Southern California could see temperatures up to 115 degrees this week. Coachella Valley and San Diego County could see temperatures climb as high as 118. That's about 10 to 15 degrees above average for this time of year. Over 30 million people around the country are under heat alerts beginning today. Phoenix, Arizona could now go more than 100 days with temperatures over 100 degrees. The National Weather Service says the previous record was 76 days in 1993. Forecasters also expect triple-digit temperatures in Washington and Oregon.
NASA held a press conference today in Houston ahead of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft's return to Earth.
That's right. The capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station Friday, just after 6 p.m. Eastern.
With intention, we put them through long-duration space station training a few years ago. And so they've finished all the same training that a normal expedition crew would do, fully qualified in all of the complex areas, spacewalks, robotics, et cetera. Butch and Sunny have also both done expeditions on board station, so they're very familiar with what that looks like.
Since the decision was made to undock uncrewed, we have been preparing through simulations, procedure reviews, and that's with the flight control team on the ground as well as the crew on orbit for the activities that are coming in the next few days. As noted, there are differences between an uncrewed and a crewed departure. For this departure, Starliner will do those immediate thruster burns to get up and away from ISS rather than a normal trajectory that has Starliner stay close to ISS. And then,
you know, in my view, they were never really, they're never stuck or stranded. They always had a way to depart the space station. And to me, when somebody is stranded, there's a location where they cannot leave. And so they had Starliner as the vehicle that they could depart from for a period of time. Now the Crew 8 is their emergency return vehicle, and when Crew 9 gets there, that will be their vehicle. That will be their return vehicle for nominal and any emergency. So
the Starliner will land on Earth 6 hours later, just after midnight Saturday at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. In the event of bad weather, backup dates have been set for September 10th, 14th, 18th, and 22nd. Over the course of its mission, the Boeing spacecraft has been experiencing thruster issues and helium leaks. On Saturday, astronaut Butch Wilmore reported strange noises in the capsule. Wilmore and fellow NASA astronaut Suni Williams will remain at the space station until early 2025. They're scheduled to catch a ride with the SpaceX Dragon 9 crew. Nordstrom could be going private now that discount stores have been the trend in recent years. Nordstrom family members have made a nearly $4 billion proposal to take the department store private. The offer comes from the founders' grandsons, Eric and Peter Nordstrom, along with other family members, and a department store chain with stake in the company. The retailer has been on a downward slide for years, with annual revenue still below pre-pandemic levels. Shoppers have increasingly turned to more affordable options, including Nordstrom's own discount store, Nordstrom Rack. It has performed better than expected, boosting the company's overall outlook. Nordstrom's board of directors has confirmed that it received the offer and will review the proposal.
Next, AI chip-making titan NVIDIA, briefly the world's most valuable company, now holds the title for the worst day in the history of the stock market. On Tuesday, NVIDIA lost $279 billion in company value. According to Bloomberg News, the sell-off was mostly in response to the Department of Justice launching an antitrust probe. NVIDIA has been accused of making it difficult for customers to switch to another chip maker and penalizing the ones who do. In a statement, NVIDIA said its customers are free to choose whatever solution is best for them. Some investors have also grown skeptical of the high valuation in artificial intelligence since the technology remains unproven. Two major Chinese-owned e-commerce sites are under U.S. scrutiny. Two leaders of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission are calling for an investigation into Shein and Temu. They say deadly baby and toddler products were sold on both websites. Shein and Temu are known for selling things at low prices. They take advantage of a rule called de minimis. Under it, packages valued less than $800 are exempt from tariffs. That's if they are shipped from China directly to U.S. consumers. Critics say the de minimis rule contributes to Shein and Temu's success in the U.S. The rule was put in place to allow Americans to bring back souvenirs bought overseas duty-free. But retailers are also taking advantage of it. In 2020, de minimis imports rose to over $67 billion.
Last month, the New York Times published a series of stories alleging abuse within Shenyun Performing Arts. The arts company, whose mission is to revive traditional culture through classical Chinese dance, is now accused of coercive practices. But many Shenyun artists have spoken out against the articles, saying the paper misrepresents them.
So what is the real story? The Epoch Times' Jan Jekielek sat down with those who are most affected to hear their stories. Here's a trailer of the program.
Me and my friends, we sat down and we were just thinking, like, how could this be happening? An environment that has given us so much and helped us grow so much. Why is it getting tarnished like this? I wanted to join Shenyun at my own will, and I told my parents, I'm like, this is something I want to do.
You need someone to tell you, no, you can do more. I see more potential in you than you see in yourself.
We really wanted to speak up, and we wanted to, share our stories.
Do you have a sense of what elite training looks like in the,
Girls first. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There's this New York Times article that's come out that has painted an extremely different picture. How do you react to that?
From my experience, it's quite the opposite. I've been bullied before. Coming here, the community and the environment makes my personality change so much. I opened up a lot more. I've become like a person who's willing to drop my guard down.
I used to suffer from depression. Like, I had very bad moments in my life before joining Shenyun, and I haven't had those for a very long time.
We do have scenes that depict Falun Gong persecution. We're telling stories that would otherwise never leave China. Mainstream media doesn't talk about it. The CCP certainly is not going to let you know about it. But this is something that's happened to my personal family.
For me, that's what Shenyun stands for. It is the freedom of belief. It is bringing hope to people.
I remember seeing an audience member, she was actually crying. It brought tears to me as well.
What do you hope happens next?
I wish for the world to have the choice to see it for themselves.
Jumping is easy, right? They watch you, but getting up, you watch.
Like jumping up.
No, you watch them. You watch, because it doesn't matter.
They go steps. They go like big steps.
Yeah,
I think we're done here.
Actually pretty crazy.
Okay, thank you very much.
This special episode of American Thought Leaders will air on NTD at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight.
Coming up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses growing pressure to secure a hostage and ceasefire deal. Hamas demands a full withdrawal from Gaza. What Netanyahu demands, we will have an expert to break down the situation just for us. Stay tuned.
Come to Mathis Home for the Monumental Savings Event and get big values on the latest dining sets. Here's a hot buy. This table and 4 side chairs is only $442. Shop and compare, nobody beats Mathis Home. Or this 72-inch table is a great value at just $670 with a genuine white marble top. Check out this mid-century modern set. You get the table and 4 chairs all for just $698. Shop now and save during the Monumental Savings Event at Mathis Home.
Will radical lies determine your child's future, or will timeless truths? Fathom the Good equips children with wisdom against the world. Our homeschool curriculum teaches high schoolers to think critically. We provide primary texts, original content, reasoning tools, and mentoring videos to help them transform America. Teach your children to navigate the world's woke confusion. Teach them to fathom the good.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked.
Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
The next day, something strange happened. Someone came up to me and gave me this flyer about Jesus.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours.
We'll walk straight out of here. Pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison. Nobody escapes my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
A shooting at a Georgia high school leaves at least 4 people dead. What we know about the situation so far.
A father of 3 in mourning. Local officials say his wife and daughters killed by an airstrike in Ukraine today. Russian attacks targeting the city of Lviv. It's just miles from a NATO member country.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses growing pressure to secure a hostage and ceasefire deal. Hamas demands a full withdrawal from Gaza. What Netanyahu demands.
Chinese-founded e-commerce platforms Shein and Temu are under scrutiny here in the U.S. 2 members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission are calling for an investigation. What their concerns are.
NVIDIA is 3rd most valuable company in the world, but its stock fell 10% yesterday. Now the government is investigating it on antitrust grounds.
NASA prepares for the Boeing Starliner's return to Earth, but the astronauts aren't on board. The uncrewed capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station on Friday.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
More updates coming in now about the high school shooting in Georgia.
That's right. Local authorities say at least 4 people are killed and 9 others are taken to the hospital.
This is a very, very fluid investigation. It's very early. And I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody.
Law enforcement responded to reports of an active shooting at Apalachee High School in Barrow County. That's about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta, and just shortly before 10:30 a.m. this morning. The school released the students to their families following a hard lockdown. A suspect is in custody. A law enforcement source told CNN that the gunman is believed to be a 14-year-old male, but it's unclear yet if he attended the high school.
The mayor of Winder and the Georgia governor are both following the situation carefully. President Biden released a statement saying, quote, "Jill and I are mourning the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence and thinking of all of the survivors whose lives are forever changed. We cannot continue to accept this as normal."
This is a developing story, and we will be keeping you updated.
Next, protests continue in Israel today. Demonstrators are mounting pressure on the government to bring home the remaining hostages. Protesters gathered in front of the headquarters of Netanyahu's Likud party in Tel Aviv. They want him and his cabinet to close a deal to release the hostages held by Hamas. The government's stance on the negotiations has frustrated allies, including the United States. It's also causing rifts within the Netanyahu administration.
We are here to call to our government, to Hamas, to all over the world. Do everything you can. We have to do a deal now, to seal a deal now. We can't wait. We will be on the streets until they come back.
Today's action comes after protests escalated over the weekend when 500,000 people took to the streets. Police clashed with demonstrators, arresting some of them. Law enforcement said people were violating public order and disrupting traffic. Police also said some protesters used smoke grenades while blocking a highway. Hamas is still holding over 100 hostages. Israeli officials estimate that a third of them have died.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a press conference amid growing pressure to secure a hostage deal.
The Prime Minister pointed to a map to explain the significance of the Philadelphia corridor in Gaza and why he says Israel must maintain a presence there.
Once we left our side of the Philadelphia corridor, rockets went in, missiles went in, drones went in, ammo went in, weapons manufacturing equipment came in, tunnel drilling equipment came in. Once we got out, once we left the Philadelphia corridor, Iran could carry out its plan to turn Gaza into a base, a terrorist enclave that would endanger not only the communities around it, but would endanger Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Beersheba, the entire country of Israel.
Netanyahu said securing the corridor is necessary to ensure Hamas can never again launch an attack on Israel like the one on October 7th.
Some Israelis have suggested giving up the area, at least temporarily, in order to reach an agreement to return around 100 hostages still held in Gaza.
Where do the Israel-Hamas ceasefire talks stand now as pressure mounts on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to secure a deal? Netanyahu held a press conference this afternoon defending his position that Israeli troops should hold the Philadelphia corridor as part of any ceasefire deal. The corridor is the passageway that Gaza shares with Egypt just to its south. Hamas could use the corridor to obtain weapons and resources, just like we heard Netanyahu saying just now. Joining us for a closer look is Ruthie Blum, former advisor in the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Ruthie, we heard Netanyahu about 2 hours ago. Where does that leave the ceasefire talks now?
Well, you know, those ceasefire talks really aren't actual negotiations since Hamas refuses to participate in them. Okay, so actually what you have are talks between the United States, Israel, and two other mediators who are not actually innocent actors in this whole setup, and that is Egypt and Qatar. Qatar is one of the major funders of Hamas terrorism and harbors Hamas terrorists. And Egypt has been enabling the flow of weapons and materials for Hamas to build this huge network of hundreds of miles of tunnels, okay? And Hamas is not showing up at these negotiations. Hamas has one goal in mind, and that is to remain in power. There is a myth right now that Netanyahu wants to hold the Philadelphia, for Israel to control and monitor the Philadelphia corridor, and that's at the expense of rescuing the hostages. This is false. There is no deal on the table according to which Hamas returns all the hostages and Israel leaves the Philadelphia corridor. It is also worth noting here that Egypt, with which Israel has a long-standing peace treaty, an actual peace treaty, is totally against any Israeli monitoring of that corridor, which is already suspicious, because Egypt knows what was going through those tunnels that lead between Egypt and Gaza. That's number one. Number two, again, had there been a deal on the table according to which all the hostages would be returned, and then Israel would have to make some very, very tough concessions, I guarantee you that even Netanyahu would be considering it. But there is no such deal. And what he's trying to do is rescue as many live hostages as possible. Hamas won't even give us a list of the hostages, the names of them, or who's alive and who's dead. So, you know, the issue right now, and by the way, Netanyahu did secure the release of half of the hostages, about 150 of the, well, there were 255, I believe, abducted on October 7th, and about half of them have been returned, either rescued or returned in a phased agreement with Hamas in November. And that agreement stopped when Hamas, on the last phase of it, Hamas refused to submit a list of the hostages, refused to return the ones it promised to return, and then began firing rockets into the Israeli center. So, you know, again, this is all on Hamas. Sadly,
Ruthie,
the families of the
what I'm hearing you saying is that these ceasefire talks, what I'm hearing you saying is that these ceasefire talks are almost like hot air. Is that correct? And if so, what are they?
They are hot air because you can't negotiate with a bloodthirsty terrorist organization. They're total hot air. But I will say one thing about Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is in a difficult situation because he doesn't want to antagonize our greatest ally, the United States. Yet, you know, the Biden administration has not been behaving in a friendly manner, or it's been behaving in a, I would say, kind of contradictory manner. And so, again, because Israel is a democracy and a real country, unlike Hamas, it's everyone is knocking on Israel's door and blaming Israel for this situation. But that's true. Those talks are hot air.
So I want to come back to the Philadelphia corridor, come back to the ground, like literally that physical ground there on the southern part of Gaza that borders Egypt, where Netanyahu is saying historically Hamas has imported weapons and equipment to build weapons and resources and things through Egypt. How important is the Philadelphia corridor to Israeli security?
Oh, it's incredibly important. Without that, there wouldn't have been an October 7th, let's put it that way. It is incredibly important for the future. First of all, Hamas has vowed to commit the atrocities of October 7th again and again and again. And don't forget, Iran is really behind all this. These are Hamas, like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, are all proxies of Iran. Now, you mentioned the street protests in Israel. I just want to make one comment about that. They are strengthening Hamas. They are strengthening Hamas's resolve. That's one thing. Two, you cannot blame any of the families of the hostages who are so devastated for, you know, expressing their frustration and taking to the streets. But really, that's not the bulk of the people in the streets. The bulk of the protesters are protesters who, before this war even started, were trying to topple Netanyahu. They were not happy that he won the last election. They are not happy with the makeup of this government. And they're piggyback riding on the tragedy of October 7th and the poor families of the hostages to create a sense that everybody just wants, that all Israelis want to end the war with defeat and leaving Hamas in power. I'm telling you, that is not the case.
Ruthie, we gotta go shortly, but I just want to get your take on this. The U.S. elections are just 60-some days away. I'm wondering what is at stake for Israel and for this war between Israel and Hamas in this election, given the two candidates that we have, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris?
Well, it's interesting because since Trump was once president and he did more for Israel, I would say, than any American president in US history, obviously there are many Israelis who are really hoping that he'll win the election. Then there, of course, another sector of Israelis, I would say the ones in the streets protesting, who would prefer a Kamala Harris administration. Again, because the left in Israel feels more comfortable with the left in America, and the conservatives feel more comfortable with a Trump type of administration in Washington. As I said, Israel and America have many similarities, and we also have diverse opinions. But definitely it will make a difference whether it's Trump or Harris in the White House. There's no question about that.
And what difference would that be?
Well, my guess is the difference will be that if it were a Trump administration, his aim would not be to put daylight between Jerusalem and Washington, whereas Kamala Harris has already expressed, again, I'm paraphrasing, this is not, she didn't say these words, those are Obama's words in the past, that there needs to be more daylight between Israel and America. And I think that she, especially given her base, and she has a lot of people in her base who are extremely hostile to Israel and many who are pro-Hamas. So there's no question that an administration run by her would be less favorable to, let's say, an Israeli victory in this war and weapons shipments to Israel, etc.
All right, Ruthie Blum, former advisor in the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you again for your time and for your insight.
And thank you for having me, Chris.
More updates now on Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump's campaign events today.
Both are busy traveling through battleground states.
Harris is holding a campaign event in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. She's delivering remarks on small businesses, including her plan to expand tax deductions for startup expenses. Harris's running mate Governor Tim Walz will be campaigning in Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Trump will also be in the pivotal election state of Pennsylvania tonight. He'll join a town hall in Harrisburg moderated by Fox News host Sean Hannity. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance will be speaking at an event hosted by Turning Point Action in Arizona tonight.
Former President Trump will plead not guilty to charges in a superseding indictment in his January 6th case. That's according to a court filing yesterday. Special counsel Jack Smith filed a revised indictment in the case last month. This after the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Trump waived his right to appear in court in Washington, D.C. He authorized his lawyers to enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. Prosecutors and Trump's lawyers will be in court tomorrow to determine the next steps in the case. Supreme Court justices ruled 6-3 in July that presidents are immune from prosecution for official acts. The ruling forced Smith to rework the indictment's charges, narrowing them down. The revised indictment removes several accusations against Trump, but it still contains the same criminal charges.
Next, the fight for control of the Senate is intensifying as campaigns hit full stride and voters start to eye races more closely. While Republicans have been favored to reclaim the Senate, Vice President Harris replacing President Biden has shaken up the dynamics for both parties. NTD's Daniel Monahan breaks down the key contests that could shape America's future government.
As Election Day approaches, 5 states have emerged as crucial battlegrounds: Montana, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. Although the GOP's chances of flipping multiple seats have narrowed, Decision Desk HQ still gives Republicans a 70% chance to win the Senate. Here are 5 of the most likely seats to flip. Montana remains the linchpin for Senate control. If Republicans win there, they likely regain the Senate majority. Former Navy SEAL officer Tim Sheehy is challenging incumbent Senator John Tester in the race. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Sheehy leading by 5 points. In Nevada, Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen is favored over Republican challenger and Purple Heart recipient Sam Brown. Financial challenges have limited Brown's reach, The latest Real Clear polling averages show Rosen with an over 10-point lead. Over to Pennsylvania, where businessman David McCormick is up against a formidable opponent in Senator Bob Casey. McCormick's campaign has stumbled recently, with several high-profile gaffes hurting his chances. Despite having a well-funded campaign, McCormick trails Casey by 3 points in the latest Real Clear polling averages. With Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes at stake, this race will remain highly visible, but McCormick faces an uphill battle against the deeply rooted Casey name. In Michigan, the open Senate seat presents another critical opportunity for Republicans. Former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers is challenging Representative Alyssa Slotkin in a state that hasn't elected a Republican senator in 3 decades. Slotkin's fundraising advantage could be a decisive factor. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Slotkin with a nearly 5-point lead. Ohio remains a key target for the GOP. Senator Sherrod Brown is seeking a 4th term in a state that Trump won by 8 points in the last 2 elections. Republican challenger entrepreneur Bernie Moreno recently launched a $25 million ad campaign, with additional pro-Moreno groups spending $8 million last week alone, an amount expected to increase weekly. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Brown with about a 5-point lead over Moreno. Overall, races are heating up and people are getting ready for a fierce final stretch. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, NASA prepares for the Boeing Starliner's return to Earth, but the astronauts are not on board.
Where are they? The uncrewed capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station on Friday.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com, and for a limited time, get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed, or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
the difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back. NASA held a press conference today in Houston ahead of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft's return to Earth.
The capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station Friday just after 6 p.m. Eastern.
With intention, we put them through long-duration space station training a few years ago. And so they've finished all the same training that a normal expedition crew would do, fully qualified in all of the complex areas, spacewalks, robotics, et cetera. Butch and Sunny have also both done expeditions on board station, so they're very familiar with what that looks like.
Since the decision was made to undock uncrewed, we have been preparing through simulations, procedure reviews, and that's with the flight control team on the ground as well as the crew on orbit for the activities that are coming in the next few days. As noted, there are differences between an uncrewed and a crewed departure. For this departure, Starliner will do those immediate thruster burns to get up and away from ISS rather than a normal trajectory that has Starliner stay close to ISS. And then,
you know, in my view, they were never really, they're never stuck or stranded. They always had a way to depart the space station. And to me, when somebody is stranded, there's a location where they cannot leave. And so they had Starliner as the vehicle that they could depart from for a period of time. Now the Crew 8 is their emergency return vehicle, and when Crew 9 gets there, that will be their vehicle. That will be their return vehicle for nominal and any emergency. So
the Starliner will land on Earth 6 hours later, just after midnight Saturday at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. In the event of bad weather, backup dates have been set for September 10th, 14th, 18th, and 22nd. Over the course of its mission, the Boeing spacecraft has been experiencing thruster issues and helium leaks. On Saturday, astronaut Butch Wilmore reported strange noises in the capsule. Wilmore and fellow NASA astronaut Sunny Williams will remain at the space station until early 2025. They're scheduled to catch a ride with the SpaceX Dragon 9 crew. The number of available jobs in the U.S. continued to shrink in July, signaling a waning demand for workers amid a cooling labor market. Job openings fell in July for the second consecutive month to an estimated 7.67 million. This according to data released Wednesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's the lowest number since January of 2021. Economists were expecting the July postings to climb to more than 8 million.
The latest batch of COVID shots are out, but be prepared to pay up if you don't have health insurance. That's because the federal program that covered the cost of the vaccines for uninsured and underinsured people ran out of funding. The Federal Bridge Access Program was set to end this December, but it expired early because of a move by Congress. They rescinded $6.1 billion in COVID emergency spending as part of a deal to avoid a government shutdown. Congress also blocked a Biden administration proposal that would provide free immunizations. Now, the roughly 25 million Americans who are without health insurance will pay up to $200 for the shots.
Nordstrom could be going private now that discount stores have been the trend in recent years. Nordstrom family members have made a nearly $4 billion proposal to take the department store private. The offer comes from the founders' grandsons, Eric and Peter Nordstrom, along with other family members and a department store chain with stake in the company. The retailer has been on a downward slide for years, with annual revenue still below pre-pandemic levels. Shoppers have increasingly turned to more affordable options, including Nordstrom's own discount store, Nordstrom Rack. It has performed better than expected, boosting the company's overall outlook. Nordstrom's board of directors has confirmed that it received the offer and will be reviewing the proposal.
Nippon Steel says senior management and a majority of board members at U.S. Steel will be American citizens. That's if Japan's biggest steelmaker can actually close the deal. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris this week said that U.S. Steel should remain American-owned and American-operated. Former President Trump has pledged to block the deal if he's elected. To gain support from politicians and labor unions, Nippon Steel hired former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as an advisor. The Japanese company also unveiled a plan last week to invest an additional $1.3 billion in U.S. Steel's mills. Nippon Steel said its vice chairman plans to visit the U.S. this month for meetings related to the deal. Both companies aim to complete the acquisition by the end of the year, depending on regulatory approvals.
The Wall Street Journal reports that U.S. Steel would close mills and likely move its headquarters out of Pittsburgh if Nippon's nearly $15 billion buyout collapses. In an interview with the Journal, the steelmaker's CEO, David Burritt, said that Nippon's investment in U.S. Steel's older mills was crucial to remain competitive and to keep workers. Burritt told the Journal that the expanded Arkansas mill would allow the company to close Mon Valley, its last steelmaking operation in Pittsburgh. The company would likely look to move its headquarters to the south as well. The deal has received all regulatory approvals from outside the U.S. and a green light from U.S. Steel's shareholders. Now, U.S. regulators are reviewing the acquisition.
When we come back, 7 states sue to block the Biden administration's new student loan forgiveness plan. What they are alleging about the plan.
2 members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission are calling for an investigation into Chinese-founded e-commerce platforms Shein and Temu. They say deadly baby products were sold on both sides. That and more after the break.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills, skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org. Working together, we can end hunger in America.
It's a painting that is peaceful. There's a lot of beauty in it. And you forget about whatever you might be worried about.
Welcome back. 7 states have filed a lawsuit to block the Biden administration's new student loan forgiveness plan. The states say they obtained documents showing the Department of Education intends to provide some of the student debt relief as early as this week. The lawsuit argues that would violate a statute prohibiting the Education Secretary from implementing a rule sooner than 60 days after its publication. Biden's SAVE plan is expected to roll out this fall. It's currently blocked while litigation plays out in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. The Department of Education declined to comment.
Joining us now to discuss this topic further is Mark Miller. He's the senior attorney at the Pacific Legal Foundation. Mark, good to see you.
Great to see you. Pleasure to be with you.
Starting us off, can you elaborate on what exactly the states are alleging here?
So the states are alleging, not unlike what they've now done twice before, is that the Department of Education at the federal level, Secretary Cardona, by direction from President Biden, is once again trying to forgive college student loan debt for students, even though the Supreme Court has now said effectively once fully last year that the administration cannot do this without congressional explicit approval by a law that it doesn't have. And then just a week ago, there was a second lawsuit challenging another effort of the Biden administration to forgive student loan debt. And the Supreme Court said, once again, you can't do that. The case is now being litigated, as you just said in the introduction, in the 8th Circuit. But the Supreme Court has again blocked that effort. So it is fairly remarkable that Attorney General Bailey of Missouri, along with several other states, have sued a third time and said the administration is still trying to forgive student loans, despite the fact that the Supreme Court has said they can't do that.
So the Department of Education, it hasn't clearly or explicitly said what it's doing. It's declined to comment really on the allegations. So we have no idea if it actually intended to start this plan. But what exactly is this SAVE plan to begin with? Why was it paused?
So, the SAVE plan is just an effort by the Biden administration to forgive hundreds of billions of dollars in student loans, not unlike what it did earlier under the HEROES plan. And it's just an idea that the government has the authority to change the terms of student loans to just simply waive the amount that the students owe. You could argue that this was a political effort by the Biden administration. The Biden administration would say, no, we have this authority that Congress over the years has passed various laws that allow us to forgive some student loans or to give very favorable terms to students. But the Supreme Court said, well, you might be able to argue that, but we don't buy it. That if Congress is if you're going to do this, President Biden, you have to do it with explicit approval from Congress. You don't have that. You're just trying to find that approval in various laws that were not intended to be so major, which is really what this is a major question. If Congress wanted this to be done, it would pass a law to do so. The administration just simply doesn't want to take no for an answer, apparently, if you accept what Attorney General Bailey is alleging. And you'd have to imagine he must have some pretty good evidence if he's willing to go to court a third time.
So how much exactly would the SAFE plan cost?
Well, right now, the number I just saw was, according to the complaint, at a minimum, you're looking at immediately $73 billion. And in fact, the complaint alleges hundreds of billions of dollars. But it says initially, very specifically says this $73 billion number. And it alleges that Cardona has told lenders to start forgiving loans almost immediately, even though a lot of administrative rules have not been followed or processes. That's part of his complaint, that to make such a significant decision, you'd have to publish this in what we call the Federal Register. That hasn't happened. And so what Bailey is saying is it's almost being done under color of night, in the sense that it's almost being hidden. Again, we haven't heard what the federal government's going to say in response. Bailey has asked the 8th Circuit, which has already stayed the second case, and the Supreme Court then supported that so that loans would not be forgiven, at least while the case is litigated. Bailey's gone back to that same court in this third case, and he's asked them to rule by the 6th. He's asked them to rule by Friday. So you'll probably see a lot of action between this afternoon and Friday on whether the 8th Circuit will stay this as well, which is, I think it's not unreasonable to predict they very well might.
I want to focus a little more on what you're saying about this doing this under the cover of night. So that is what the states that are suing this time are alleging. Is that actually possible for the defendants to do?
Well, it's possible to do anything until a court tells you you can't. And so the administration may very well say, no, this is a big misunderstanding. That being said, the 6 or 7 states that have filed suit here obviously are skeptical. And you can see why they might be, because this would now be the 3rd effort. There's already been 2 efforts. And even that second case was surprising. If the Supreme Court says you can't forgive student loans at the $1 billion level, $1 billion plus level, without congressional approval explicitly, why would you try to do it a second time? That's really what the argument in that second case was. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, we kind of agree. We're going to make sure that that is not being done until the case is fully heard as to why it might be different from the first one. So now for it to be happening a 3rd time is remarkable. Again, assuming it's true, it will be interesting to see what Secretary Cardona and the administration says when they finally do speak to the lawsuit, which, as you noted, they have not done yet.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you bring up, this is already the 3rd time that something like this is coming up in regards to student loan debt forgiveness. And so we've seen that the Biden administration has tried multiple avenues to try to get this whole thing through. So based on what you're seeing, what are the chances that they'll succeed this time around?
Yeah, well, it's short term versus long term. It seems unlikely to me that this case won't follow the same prospects that the first 2 did and be stopped, that the government would not get to forgive the loans without full court review. The full court review could take some time, but I think in the immediate short term, you will see the court stop any sort of student loans from being forgiven until this case is litigated, until the administration explains even what's happening, since this wasn't done with publication in the Federal Register as would have been expected, at least as Attorney General Bailey has said. So I think in the short term, I think it's reasonable to predict the courts will stop whatever the federal government is doing here. In the long term, it's harder to say. Certainly if President Trump wins re-election, I think he would probably, who knows what President Trump would do. If Vice President Harris wins, she may want to continue it. And that will then be very interesting at the long term, no different than all the other litigation that's going on with the candidates.
Mark, just to wrap things up, I want to bring this conversation down to a more personal level. We've been talking about government administrations, all these policy court cases, but at the end of the day, this is a topic surrounding student loans. So American students here, are they being affected or impacted anyway by this flip-flopping of these policies?
Well, when you make it personal, sure. I have a couple of children who have college student loans who probably would love for the administration to be able to forgive their loans. But the thing is, we live under the separation of powers in this country. And that separation of powers between Congress and the president and the courts have served us well. And the executive branch is supposed to implement the laws, not write them. Congress writes the laws. And that's what this fight has been about all along. So even though my children and many other people's children who are my age might want to see their student loans forgiven, they also know they're blessed to live in the United States of America, and things need to be done right. If we give the president too much power, regardless of the party, we will regret it. We intentionally live in a republic where the president does not have the kind of power to write laws. We argue about executive orders all the time, but when we're doing big things like forgiving hundreds of billions of dollars, it needs to go through Congress. So no matter who's wishing that they could get a little help here from the government, it has to happen the correct way, the way the founding fathers intended. So really, in the long term, we want this done right, and the Supreme Court has said what the administration is doing is not right.
Mark, I think you make a great point there. Really, the separation of powers, these checks and balances, is really such a significant pillar of American democracy, and it's really something that has to be upheld no matter what the topic of conversation is. Mark Miller, Senior Attorney for Pacific Legal Foundation, thank you for your insights today.
Always a pleasure to join you.
Moving on, at least 7 people are dead after an attack on the Ukrainian city of Lviv today. The deceased include 4 members of the same family.
The Russian strike comes just a day after one of Russia's deadliest attacks yet. That killed around 50 people. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
Russian strikes hit the western city of Lviv early Wednesday. The city is located just 40 miles from the border with Poland. Poland is a NATO member and a member of the European Union. 4 of the 7 Ukrainian casualties were all members of the same family. The man being treated here is the father. Local officials say he lost his wife and 3 daughters. Almost 50 people are injured after the attack. The city's mayor described the destruction.
We can now clearly see that people from at least 6 houses require resettlement. 2 schools will not be open today. Many windows have been blown out.
Also in Ukraine today, but further east, close to Russia, 2 people died after an attack on a market in Donetsk.
The explosion was very powerful. We were at market's office when it happened. After a short pause, we came here running and saw 2 killed.
He added that 4 more had been injured. And another high-profile resignation in Kyiv. Ukraine's foreign minister handed in his resignation. A major government reshuffle is underway. President Volodymyr Zelensky explained the changes.
We need new energy today, and these steps are related only to the strengthening of our state in different directions. International policy, diplomacy is not an exception.
On Tuesday, 3 other ministers announced their resignation. Zelensky thanked them for their work over the past few years. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul told reporters she wanted the head of the Chinese consulate in New York to be removed. And she said she made that request to the federal government. This comes after a former aide to New York governors Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo was charged with secretly working as an agent for the Chinese Communist Party. Here's Hochul today.
And I had conveyed my desire to have the Consul General from the People's Republic of China in the New York mission expelled. And I've been informed that the Consul General is no longer in the New York mission.
Former Deputy Chief of Staff Linda Sun, who worked for both Hochul and Cuomo, has been charged with several crimes. According to the DOJ's indictment, she's accused of violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy. Federal prosecutors also charged her husband, Chris Hu, with money laundering conspiracy, bank fraud conspiracy, along with misusing means of identification. Hochul said today her request to remove the Chinese official in New York is to send a message to other officials. When asked today, the State Department said the official was not expelled, but reached the end of his scheduled term.
2 major Chinese-owned e-commerce sites are under U.S. scrutiny. 2 leaders of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission are calling for an investigation into Shein and Temu. They say deadly baby and toddler products were sold on both websites. Shein and Temu are known for selling things at low prices. They take advantage of a rule called de minimis. Under it, packages valued less than $800 are exempt from tariffs. That's if they are shipped from China directly to U.S. consumers. Critics say the de minimis rule contributed to Shein and Temu's success in the U.S. The rule was put in place to allow Americans to bring back souvenirs bought overseas duty-free, but retailers are also taking advantage of it. In 2020, de minimis imports rose to over $67 billion.
Last month, the New York Times published a series of stories alleging abuse within Shenyun Performing Arts. The arts company, whose mission is to revive traditional culture through classical Chinese dance, is now accused of coercive practices. But many Shenyun artists have spoken out against the articles, saying that the paper misrepresents them.
So what is the real story? The Epoch Times' Jan Jekielek sat down with those who are most affected to hear their stories. Here's a trailer of the program.
Me and my friends, we sat down and we're just thinking, like, how could this be happening? An environment that has given us so much and helped us grow so much. Why is it getting tarnished like this? I wanted to join Shenyun at my own will, and I told my parents, I'm like, this is something I want to do.
You need someone to tell you, no, you can do more. I see more potential in you than you see in yourself.
We really wanted to speak up, and we wanted to, like share our stories.
Do you have a sense of what elite training looks like in the,
Girls first. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's this New York Times article that's come out that has painted an extremely different picture. How do you react to that?
From my experience, it's quite the opposite. I've been bullied before. Coming here, the community and the environment makes my personality change so much. I opened up a lot more. I've become like a person who's willing to drop my guard down.
I used to suffer from depression. Like I have very bad moments in my life before joining Shenyun. And I haven't had those for a very long time.
We do have scenes that depict Falun Gong persecution. We're telling stories that would otherwise never leave China. Mainstream media doesn't talk about it. The CCP certainly is not going to let you know about it. But this is something that's happened to my personal family.
For me, that's what Shenyun stands for. It is the freedom of belief. It is bringing hope to people.
I remember seeing an audience member. She was actually crying. It brought tears to me as well.
What do you hope happens next?
I wish for the world to have the choice to see it for themselves.
Jumping is easy, right? They watch you, but getting up, you watch.
Like jumping up.
No, you watch them. You watch, because it doesn't matter.
They go steps. They go like big steps.
Yeah,
I think we're done here.
We're actually pretty crazy.
Okay, thank you very much.
This special episode of American Thought Leaders will air on NTD at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, so be sure to check it out. Now, coming up, a California company hopes its innovative electric boats are the wave of the future.
We look at some of the features of their high-end speedboat after the break.
We designed NativePath products to restore essential nutrients missing from the modern diet. This is what being on the path is all about. We're more than a health and wellness brand, we're a community.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
我们师父讲过，过去武术的身法，你上阵的，你要是身法你保持好了，你就失去了生命。
Are today's mainstream martial arts not traditional martial arts?
现在有些人他学说传统武术，他尤其是西方人，他不懂。为什么我们要举行大赛呢？因为新唐人他就是要提倡传统武术，复兴中华5000年的传统文化。传统武术，真正的传统武术是讲武德的。我相信有一点，就是守住武德，就有人教。
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer. She's on the honor roll. She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Thanks for staying with us. 3-year-old startup Arc Boats is embarking on a voyage to electrify mobility at sea. The startup says it wants to follow Tesla's strategy, but this time on water. Let's take a look.
The vessel rips through the water at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour on a river in Northern California's Delta. But the surfer is performing his aquatic acrobatics behind a different type of boat. It's powered by electricity instead of gasoline.
This is called the Arc Sport. It's the second boat that we've brought to market as a company. It's a fully electric 23-foot long wake sport boat intended for lakes and rivers across the U.S. Where you can wakeboard, wake surf, inner tube, do whatever you want out on the water.
The Arc Sport costs just under $260,000. Like Tesla did with its first car, Arc Boats is starting off with luxurious vessels likely to appeal to a small affluent audience, those willing to spend big bucks to own the latest advances in technology. Arc CEO says an electric boat has many advantages over gas-powered boats.
It has a massive 226 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which gives it all-day usage time, and then you can recharge it overnight and be ready to go the next day. It's quieter, it's far more reliable, it's way cheaper to operate. You're not inhaling fumes off of the back of the boat.
The success of Tesla vehicles along with electric cars from other automakers has created a supply chain of batteries and other parts needed to electrify boats too.
A boat like this would not have been possible even 5 years ago. What's really made a boat like the Arc Sport possible is all of the money that has been going into the automotive industry to develop electric powertrains there and to really scale up the manufacturing of batteries.
While the cost of the Arc Sport is high, Lee expects prices to come down in the future.
So over time you expect this technology to get less expensive, to be able to electrify even lower cost segments.
The 23-foot Arc Sport comes with display screens, sensors, Wi-Fi, a hydraulic system for raising and lowering the roof, and a 226 kilowatt battery. Arc Boats employs more than 100 employees, including engineers who formerly worked for Elon Musk at two of his breakthrough companies, Tesla and SpaceX.
Named after a fruit with the same color, clementine is a rare orange lobster. It was recently rescued from a Long Island supermarket and placed back into the sea. Humane Long Island is a non-governmental organization dedicated to animal protection. The group released footage of the rescue operation on August 28th.
Clementine is only 1 in 30 million lobsters who are born orange. She is also one of the very few lobsters who was actually rescued from a supermarket. Our friends at the Southampton Animal Shelter contacted us after seeing her in their local Stop and Shop. So we reached out to the Stop and Shop, and their management agreed to surrender her to us so we can give her a more natural life.
After rescuing her, Clementine was gradually acclimated by mixing seawater with the supermarket water. Once she was ready, the lobster was released into the wild and swam away. Coming up, we're expecting the latest updates on the shooting at the Georgia High School. We have that and more after this break.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, ride your bike.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, smile big and bright.
Thousands of kids just like me are happy every day.
And it's all because of generous people like you who support Shriners Hospitals for Children every month.
All you have to do is call the number on your screen or go online to loveshriners.org right now with your monthly gift.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children is able to make an everyday miracle happen for kids like me.
If you're happy and you know it, dance around. If you're happy and you know it, play a song.
If you're happy and you know it, and your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, take a shot.
call or go online right now to donate $19 a month or more, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of all the smiles you're bringing to kids' faces every day.
Will today be the day you send your love to the rescue?
When you call the number on your screen right now and give as little as $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you'll be making a life-changing difference for a child, just like Sarah.
Your monthly gift today could change your life forever.
Because of you.
We are happy and we know it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please call or go online right now to give. If operators are busy, please wait patiently or go to loveshriners.org right away.
New to Medicare? Recently moved or losing coverage? Then let us help break it down for you. First up, we have Medicare Part A. Consider your hospital insurance as your safety net, covering inpatient hospital stays, skilled nursing facilities, hospice care, and some home health care. It's the help for your peace of mind, ensuring that you get the care you may need when you need it. And now let's talk about Medicare Part B, your medical insurance. This is your key to most preventative services, outpatient care and doctor visits, from flu shots to screenings. Part B, you're at the forefront of proactive health care. If you enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan, the plan may provide all of your Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B coverage, and it is designed with you in mind, providing a wide array of coverage options for personalized care. Review your Medicare coverage options, ensuring it aligns with your evolving healthcare needs, from flu shots to screenings. Call 800-939-1759. That's 800-939-1759.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
A shooting at a Georgia high school leaves at least 4 people dead. What we know about the situation so far.
A lawsuit to block the Biden administration's new student loan forgiveness program has been filed by 7 states after obtaining documents.
Japanese steelmaker Nippon tries to overcome opposition to its efforts to acquire U.S. steel. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris weighs in.
Trade tensions rise between China and Canada. Beijing has launched an anti-dumping probe into Canadian canola oil following Ottawa imposing a new import on Chinese-made EVs.
America is experiencing the biggest surge in immigration since the 1800s. We ask how this is impacting the U.S. economy.
And equestrian sports are a big trend in Australia. Since the pandemic, Aussies are spending big money on events.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
More updates coming in about the high school shooting in Georgia.
Local authorities say at least 4 people are killed and 9 others taken to the hospital.
Law enforcement responded to reports of an active shooting at Apalachee High School in Barrow County. That's about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta, shortly before 10:30 a.m. this morning. The school released the students to their families following a hard lockdown. A suspect is in custody. A law enforcement source told CNN the gunman is believed to be a 14-year-old male, but it's unclear yet if he attended the high school.
The mayor of Winder and the Georgia governor are both following the situation. President Biden released a statement saying, quote, "Jill and I are mourning the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence and thinking of all of the survivors whose lives are forever changed. We cannot continue to accept this as normal."
This is a developing story. We will be keeping you updated.
Next, 7 states have filed a lawsuit to block the Biden administration's new student loan forgiveness program. The states say they obtained documents showing the Department of Education intends to provide some of the student debt relief as early as this week. The lawsuit argues that would violate a statute prohibiting the Education Secretary from implementing a rule sooner than 60 days after its publication. Biden's SAVE plan is expected to roll out this fall. It's currently blocked while litigation plays out in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. The Department of Education declined to comment.
Today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul told reporters she wanted the head of the Chinese consulate in New York to be removed, and she said she made that request to the federal government. This comes after a former aide to New York Governors Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo was charged with secretly working as an agent for the Chinese Communist Party. Here's Hochul today.
And I had conveyed my desire to have the Consul General from the People's Republic of China in the New York mission expelled. And I've been informed that the Consul General is no longer in the New York mission.
Former Deputy Chief of Staff Linda Sun, who worked for both Hochul and Cuomo, has been charged with several crimes. According to the DOJ's indictment, she's been accused of violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy. Federal prosecutors also charged her husband, Chris Hu, with money laundering conspiracy, bank fraud conspiracy, along with misusing means of identification. Hochul said today her request to remove the Chinese official in New York is to send a message to other officials. When asked today, the State Department said the official was not expelled, but rather reached the end of his scheduled term. A former aide to top aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul is charged with working for the Chinese Communist Party. As we just mentioned there, Deputy Chief of Staff Linda Sun and her husband were arrested at their home in Long Island.
That's right. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the case, which also involves charges of visa fraud, smuggling illegal immigrants, and conspiracy to commit money laundering.
Linda, what do you have to say to the allegations?
Linda Sun is a Chinese-born naturalized U.S. citizen. She held various New York government roles from 2012 until 2023, working as former Governor Andrew Cuomo's Deputy Chief Diversity Officer and Governor Hochul's Deputy Chief of Staff. The indictment says she received millions of dollars for deeds done for the Chinese Communist Party. The alleged activities include blocking requests from representatives of the Taiwanese government to meet or invite Cuomo and Hochul. Also, altering the governor's messaging to remove references to Taiwan and human rights abuses in Xinjiang. She is also accused of attempting to facilitate a trip to China by Hochul and arranging meetings for visiting delegations from the communist regime with government officials. Prosecutors say she provided unauthorized invitation letters from the office of the New York governor to allow Chinese officials to enter the United States illegally and meet with government officials. Sun allegedly forged Hochul's signature on these letters. She also reportedly smuggled a Chinese consulate official into a remote New York State government conference and attended events in China using her official title without authorization. Prosecutors also allege that Sun in March 2020 secretly added a Chinese consulate official to a private New York State government conference call about COVID-19 and rising hate crimes against Asian Americans. They say she repeatedly messaged the official to keep their phone muted. Sun also allegedly went on trips to China whose expenses were fully or partly paid for by the communist regime or CCP agents. In return for her activities, Sun is accused of receiving substantial economic and other benefits from Beijing's representatives. Those included arranging millions of dollars in transactions for her husband's business activities in China, travel benefits, tickets to events, promotion of a close family friend's business, and employment for her cousin in China. The indictment says the couple laundered monetary proceeds to purchase costly items. Those included her $3.6 million home in New York, a $1.9 million condominium in Hawaii, and various luxury cars, including a 2024 Ferrari. Governor Hochul's office issued a statement about the case. It says Sun was hired by the executive chamber more than a decade ago, and that they fired her in March 2023 after discovering evidence of misconduct.
I'm furious and I'm outraged and absolutely shocked at how brazen her behavior was. It was a betrayal of trust, the trust of government, the trust of the people. And I'll tell you this, the second we discovered some levels of misconduct, we fired her. We alerted the authorities, and hence we ended up with what happened here today.
Andrew Cuomo's spokesperson said Sun was one of many community liaisons who had little or no interaction with the governor. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The investigation into the withdrawal from Afghanistan is coming to a head. The House Foreign Affairs Committee issued a subpoena for Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday. The committee members are requesting that he appear during a September 19th hearing to discuss its report on the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan. Committee Chairman Michael McCaul says Blinken has refused previous requests to appear before the committee. McCaul has criticized the Biden administration for how the withdrawal played out, including the Abbey Gate bombing, which left 13 service members dead. McCaul is set to release his committee's report detailing the findings of their 3-year investigation next week. The State Department released its own report last year. It said the decision to pull all U.S. troops from Afghanistan had detrimental consequences, and both Trump and Biden administration officials shared some of the blame.
The fight for control of the Senate is intensifying as campaigns hit full stride and voters start to eye races more closely. While Republicans have been favored to reclaim the Senate, Vice President Harris, replacing President Biden, has shaken up the dynamics for both parties. NTD's Daniel Monahan breaks down the key contests that could shape America's future government.
As Election Day approaches, 5 states have emerged as crucial battlegrounds: Montana, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. Although the GOP's chances of flipping multiple seats have narrowed, Decision Desk HQ still gives Republicans a 70% chance to win the Senate. Here are 5 of the most likely seats to flip. Montana remains the linchpin for Senate control. If Republicans win there, they likely regain the Senate majority. Former Navy SEAL officer Tim Sheehy is challenging incumbent Senator John Tester in the race. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Sheehy leading by 5 points. In Nevada, Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen is favored over Republican challenger and Purple Heart recipient Sam Brown. Financial challenges have limited Brown's reach. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Rosen with an over 10-point lead. Over to Pennsylvania, where businessman David McCormick is up against a formidable opponent in Senator Bob Casey. McCormick's campaign has stumbled recently, with several high-profile gaffes hurting his chances. Despite having a well-funded campaign, McCormick trails Casey by 3 points in the latest Real Clear polling averages. With Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes at stake, this race will remain highly visible, but McCormick faces an uphill battle against the deeply rooted Casey name. In Michigan, the open Senate seat presents another critical opportunity for Republicans. Former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers is challenging Representative Alyssa Slotkin in a state that hasn't elected a Republican senator in 3 decades. Slotkin's fundraising advantage could be a decisive factor. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Slotkin with a nearly 5-point lead. Ohio remains a key target for the GOP. Senator Sherrod Brown is seeking a 4th term in a state that Trump won by 8 points in the last 2 elections. Republican challenger entrepreneur Bernie Moreno recently launched a $25 million ad campaign, with additional pro-Moreno groups spending $8 million last week alone, an amount expected to increase weekly. The latest Real Clear polling averages show Brown with about a 5-point lead over Moreno. Overall, races are heating up and people are getting ready for a fierce final stretch. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Another high-profile resignation in Kyiv today as a major government reshuffle is underway.
Ukraine's foreign minister has now tendered his resignation.
Ukraine will resist, as it has done so far, and Ukraine will win.
In the wake of Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba became one of Kiev's most prominent faces on the global stage, crisscrossing continents to secure crucial military and diplomatic aid for his embattled nation, from Warsaw to the United Nations, and making the case for NATO membership in Brussels.
Minister Kuleba, welcome, Dmytro. It's good to have you here.
But on Wednesday, Kuleba resigned. The 43-year-old diplomat is the highest-profile figure to step down in a major government reshuffle ordered by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Asked about the personnel changes at a news conference on Wednesday, Zelensky said he was grateful for the ministers who worked for Ukraine for many years. He added, quote, "We need new energy today, and these steps are related only to the strengthening of our state in different directions. International policy, diplomacy is not an exception." Ukraine is at a critical juncture in the 30-month war against Russia. Russian forces are advancing in the east of Ukraine, while Ukrainian troops have made a bold incursion into Russia's Kursk region. On Tuesday, at least 50 people, including soldiers, were killed by 2 missiles in the central Ukrainian town of Poltava in the deadliest single attack of the war this year. Later this month, Zelensky travels to the United States, where he hopes to present a, quote, victory plan to U.S. President Joe Biden. More resignations and appointments are expected over the coming days. 5 ministers stepped down on Tuesday.
The U.S. dollar's dominance is being challenged. But as far as JP Morgan sees it, the dollar is still holding strong.
Though the bank is noticing areas where the dollar is losing ground. We'll have more on that after the break.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. I have met so many survivors. Each of them tells a story that can be so helpful to women out there.
Everything was pretty good. It was a very happy life. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
I think everyone should support the American Heart Association. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. You can be part of that very important work that the American Heart Association is doing to save lives everywhere. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special T-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives.
I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children. I am very thankful for the American Heart Association.
Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives.
Welcome back. For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us. Don, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you guys doing? Yona, Chris?
Pretty good. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, so a lot of news to cover today, so let me get right on ahead with that over here on the wall. Nippon Steel says senior management and a majority of the board members at U.S. Steel will be American citizens, and that's if Japan's biggest steelmaker can close the deal. Now, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris this week said that U.S. Steel should remain American-owned and American-operated. Former President Trump has pledged to block the deal if he is elected. Now, to gain support from politicians and labor unions, Nippon Steel hired former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as an advisor. The Japanese company also unveiled a plan last week to invest an additional $1.3 billion in U.S. Steel's mills. Nippon Steel also saying that its vice chairman plans to visit the U.S. this month for meetings related to the deal. Both companies aim to complete the acquisition by the end of the year, depending on regulatory approvals. Now on to Volvo. It has pulled the e-brake on its EV target. The Swedish car maker has scrapped its 2030 target for a fully electric lineup. Its new goal now is to have at least 90% of cars sold then to be fully electric or plug-in hybrid. It added that plug-in hybrids would be critical for its future growth. Volvo and many major automakers have been bracing for the effects of European tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, as well as the slowing demand for EVs. Drivers have been reluctant to switch to electric due to a lack of affordable models and charging infrastructure. Now in Germany, Volkswagen leaders warning that it is under pressure to revamp its brand image. The company's finance chief said today that Volkswagen has 1, maybe 2 years to turn the car brand around. Volkswagen recently revealed that it may start cutting costs and closing factories. At a meeting this morning, workers voiced their frustration. They accused management of betraying their trust, and the company is grappling with a significant dip in demand for its cars. It now aims to transition to producing mostly electric vehicles. Workers also criticize the CEO for prioritizing a software deal with the U.S. firm over preserving German jobs. Now, more shoppers looks like are trying to stretch their dollars. Dollar Tree has revealed that weak demand has spread from its core lower-income customers to its middle and higher-income customers as well. So according to the Wall Street Journal, Dollar Tree revealed that customers with an annual income of over $125,000 are shifting from shopping for want to shopping for need. Dollar Tree has cut its full-year outlook. In response, its stock plunged. At last check, it's in the red about 23%. Meanwhile, the world's third most valuable company, which is NVIDIA, lost a massive $279 billion in market value on Tuesday. Joining me now is Vijay Marolia. He's the founder and CIO of RP Capital Solutions. Now, Vijay, it's unclear why NVIDIA stock fell yesterday. What are some possibilities?
I think it's part of an overall correction, not just in the stock market in general, but specifically semiconductor stocks. So we've talked about this before. Trees don't grow to the sky, and markets must correct. And I think it's very important to keep in mind what time it is, not today, but throughout the year. And there are seasonal factors. And so, as they say in the summer, you should expect more volatility. Sell-in may go away. And so historically, September and October are going to be the most volatile months. There's not as many bids, and you're already seeing a fragile market. You got an election coming up. We don't know which way the world is going. And so I think that the uncertainty adds to the volatility, but I don't think that it's a big shock.
So do you see this as a buying opportunity?
Absolutely. I think if you're a long-term investor, and I think that it's a rare thing now because a lot of people are basically day trading in the markets. I think it's not a coincidence that you're seeing you're seeing increased option usage, but you're seeing it with 0 days to maturity. So that's a lottery ticket. That's not investing. When you invest in the stock market, you're investing in a pie that gets bigger for everybody, so everybody can get a piece. When you're investing in derivatives or options, for you to win, somebody else has to lose. And so I'm not saying that I'm anti-derivative. We make a lot of money in derivatives. But what I'm saying is you really need to know what you're doing, and you really need to be sure that you did your homework, because for you to win, somebody else must not done it or lose.
Do you believe the market has overvalued AI-related stocks, NVIDIA, for example?
I wish I had that crystal ball, Don, but it's a great question. It's the question that everybody is asking. But I think that if you look in the grand scheme of things, we're still early. I think we're maybe in the second or third inning because adoption is still increasing, but it's still so low. People are still trying to wrap their heads around it. And I know that we are reading about this and living it and using it in our lives on a daily basis, but not everybody around us is. And it's still very early. And so I think that this is a healthy correction. I think that long-term investors will probably use it as a buying opportunity. Certainly we are. And I really think that until 2026 at the earliest, NVIDIA has a beautiful moat around its business. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to compete with them.
Okay, so here's what I think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like NVIDIA has been priced so much to perfection that a lot could make its shares fall, but I'm seeing more risk to the downside and less opportunity for the upside.
So you bring up a great point. And so what you're talking about is valuing it relative to growth. So the big question mark is going to be the future growth. We already know how fast they've been growing, and it's pretty phenomenal. And like I said, I think that we can see as far out as about 2025, and then 2026, and afterwards, your guess is as good as mine. But I think that the biggest concern is that the heavy spenders are going to slow down. And if there's a risk, I would say that's it. That's what we're keeping close tabs on.
Okay, what is your assessment of the U.S. economy right now, and how does that affect your position in big tech?
I think the economy, which is consumer-based, is certainly slowing down. I think it's slowing down because of inflation, first and foremost. I think that within inflation, even though the rate is coming down, the cost of living is not coming down. I think that we're at a new plateau. That plateau is forcing hard decisions on everyday Americans, and not easy decisions. It's, should I get my medication? Do I need to move? Insurance is ridiculous, not just homeowners insurance, but also auto insurance. I think that the economy, although healthy, when you look at the headlines and the let's call it the survey results, if you dig deeper, it's not that healthy. If you look at the jobs, most of the new jobs are part-time. Some of them are second jobs. You're seeing the opposite of growth in full-time jobs.
All right, Vijay, thank you so much for your time today. Always great speaking to you.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
All right, moving on from that, is the US dollar still dominating or its demise imminent? Now, according to JP Morgan, reports of its demise seems to be greatly exaggerated. The bank believes any meaningful erosion would take decades. And that's because it says emerging markets are still using dollars for bank deposits. There's more and more dollar-denominated debt around the world. But it did acknowledge that Washington sanctions have led countries like Russia, China, and more to building alternatives, and commodity markets are increasingly trading in non-USD currencies. Let's talk about Nordstrom. Could be going private now that discount stores have been the trend in recent years. Nordstrom family members have made a nearly $4 billion proposal to take the department store private. The offer comes from the founders' grandsons, Eric and Peter Nordstrom, along with other family members as well, and a department store chain with stake in the company. The retailer has been on a downward slide for years, with annual revenue still below pre-pandemic levels. Shoppers have increasingly turned to more affordable options. That's including Nordstrom's own discount store, Nordstrom Rack, has performed better than expected, boosting the company's overall outlook. Nordstrom's board of directors has confirmed that it received the offer and will review the proposal. Okay, onto the labor market. The number of available jobs in the U.S. continue to shrink in July, and this is indicating that the demand for workers continued to wane amid a cooling labor market. Job openings fell for the second consecutive month to an estimated 7.67 million, according to data released today by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's the lowest number since January 2021, many years ago. Economists were expecting the July posting to climb to more than 8 million. And a historical high of illegal immigrants are moving into the U.S. We take a look now at how the surge will impact the American economy. Take a look.
The U.S. is experiencing the largest immigration surge since the Great Wave of the late 1800s, the Congressional Budget Office says. An overwhelming majority, around 6.5 million, are illegal immigrants.
There were fewer babies born in the United States last year, less than 3.6 million, than there were illegal immigrants coming into this country.
Population researcher Steve Mosier says 10% of those babies are the babies of illegal immigrants.
I'm all in favor of more children, all right? I'm all in favor of population growth. I think a population decline leads to economic collapse. It leads to societal collapse.
Mosier says this immigration may help the U.S. with its historically low fertility rate, but he says it's better for citizens to have more babies than illegal immigrants. Census Bureau data suggests most illegal immigrants are young, have a low level of education, and are ready to work. These immigrants compete with native-born Americans for low-paying jobs, and this is likely to keep wages relatively low. The jobs most commonly worked by illegal immigrants are as construction workers, housekeepers, cooks, and janitors. The overwhelming majority come from Latin American countries like Venezuela, Mexico, and Honduras. Many are also from China, Russia, India, or Africa. Their top destinations are California, Texas, New York, New Jersey, and Florida. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the migrant surge will boost federal revenues by $1.2 trillion over a decade. It says the surge will boost economic activity and the migrants themselves will pay taxes.
Okay, Social Security is next. In its current state, it's facing $63 trillion in long-term unfunded liabilities. And that's the projection from the 2024 Old Age Survivors Disability Insurance Trustees Report. So that's looking at the entire lifespan of the program. Officials say that the deficits reflect increasing life expectancy as well as annual shortfalls of people paying in once trust fund reserves run out. Trustees say that the shortfall could be eliminated by a 27% reduction of benefits or by raising payroll tax rate to about 14%. Okay, a bit of China-related stories today. The country has exchanged another tit-for-tat, escalating more trade tension with another country. Beijing said it will launch an anti-dumping probe on Canadian canola oil exports. More than half of Canada's canola oil is exported to China, and that's the world's biggest oilseed importer. China reports that imports had jumped since last year. On X, Canada's Farm Minister said that Ottawa was closely following the case and would defend and support the farm sector. China made the announcement a week after Canada imposed new tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. This is a move that the US and the EU have already made. Meanwhile, the annual Toronto International Film Festival, or TIFF for short, is returning from September 5th to September 15th this year. Many new films from around the world will premiere at the festival, showcasing cultural diversity. Let's take a look.
Angelina Jolie is going to be here, Kate Blanchett, hopefully Amy Adams. So yeah, it's very, very exciting.
Tomorrow marks the start of the Toronto International Film Festival. The city is already filled with anticipation.
You have people from all over the world flying into Toronto, presenting films from all over the world. It generates a lot of excitement.
The year-round stuff is great, but I think the festival is really exciting, and it's a nice thing for our city to have.
TIFF was founded in 1976, showcasing films from around the world. It's one of the world's largest annual film events, attracting both industry professionals and movie lovers.
I like seeing movies. I like seeing kind of different movies than you would get at like kind of the normal Cineplex. One of my favorite things is going to see something that you don't know much about and sort of being surprised.
People from all over the world coming to TIFF this year to just enjoy the films. That's how it's supposed to work.
TIFF is not just a celebration of the film industry, it's also a celebration of cultural diversity.
It's an opportunity for people from all around the world to come to Toronto, exchange ideas, exchange opportunities to share different perspective about movie, about culture.
Toronto is such a very cosmopolitan city. You have so many languages that are spoken here, so it's very exciting to see this translated into film. I'm from Brazil, so I'm always very excited to see like the Brazilian films and the artists that come.
As TIFF prepares to roll out the red carpet, the city of Toronto is ready to welcome the world. NTD News, Toronto, Canada.
And now local authorities are giving more information on the Georgia shooting. Let's tune into that right now.
That's C-O-L-T Gray. He is a 14-year-old student here at the school, G-R-A-Y. He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder, and he will be tried as an adult and handled as an adult. We're coordinating these charges and obviously this investigation with District Attorney Brad Smith, who is the District Attorney for the Piedmont Judicial Circuit here. Since earlier this morning we talked with you and since the incident occurred, numerous interviews have been taking place through our investigation with students, faculty, as well as any other witnesses that we could identify. Law enforcement had a very, very swift response to this incident once the incident was determined that there was a concern here. Those resources, whether it was in that response or throughout this investigation to assist, came obviously from the Sheriff's Office here, from other local law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies, and federal law enforcement agencies as well. To include, not to be left out, multiple EMS personnel, multiple fire personnel and agencies. Those agencies responded here as well today, and I am extremely grateful, as I know the sheriff is, for that quick response and the partnerships of working here together with what all has gone on. Currently, from the investigative perspective, we have crime scene agents and other special agents from the GBI, from close to a dozen of our different work units from across the state that have responded here today to work on this investigation, again, collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and so forth. I do want to pass this along, that if anyone has any information that wants to be passed on concerning this investigation, that they can do that anonymously at our tip line at 1-800-597-TIPS or 1-800-597-8477. They can also report this on by downloading the See Something, Send Something app. They can be done by Android or Apple phones, either one. If they need to report any tips concerning this investigation. Let me close out before I turn this over to the sheriff and let you just remind you that this is still a very active investigation. There is still a lot that is very fluid. There's still a lot of interviews to be conducted that will continue on into the night, as well as crime scene work and collecting and gathering evidence. But what is more important for me to mention here to you is my heartfelt sympathy to the parents, the students that were here today. Regardless of where they were in the school, this has got a great impact on them as well as on this community. My thoughts and prayers, along with everybody standing behind me and every law enforcement agency in this state, and many I will tell you around this country, they are in our thoughts and prayers, and we will continue with that. We ask for your patience as we continue through this, and we'll continue to try to give you as many updates with information as we can to keep you informed. But thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to Barrow County Sheriff Judge Smith. Thank you. H-O-S-E-Y. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Judge Smith of the Barrow County Sheriff's Office. I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support they give me today, to give this office and give this staff. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. I'm proud of this school system. My heart hurts for these kids. My heart hurts for our community. But I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county. I want that to be very clear and known. Love will prevail over what happened today. I assure you of that. It is very early as to what happened. Governor Kemp reached out to me and has provided me every single resource that he has to make sure justice prevails. I don't know why it happened. I may not ever know. We may not ever know. But I ask that you and our community lift up our schools, lift up our public safety, and that, again, we do not let this hateful event prevail as to what happened today. I want to thank the surrounding agencies and counties and cities and state and federal authorities that have come and provided us, because they prevented a lot of more tragic events from happening. Continue to lift up these families, continue to lift up our students and our kids, and know that love will prevail. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. LaDuff, our school superintendent, to come and speak on behalf of the school.
Good afternoon, I'm Dallas LaDuff. I'm the superintendent of Barrow County School System. I want to thank the Barrow County Sheriff's Office and all of our law enforcement partners for their swift response today, along with that of our staff. I'd also like to thank our community for their response and patience as we work to reunify the students with their families here today and secure the rest of our school campuses. Our schools will be closed for the remainder of this week as we cooperate fully with law enforcement to get answers to the many questions that we all have about this incident here today. But as we are closed, our central offices will remain open, where we will have grief counseling available for our community every day this week and thereafter as we support each other through this terrible event. In closing, I just want to say to our community, as a school system, we are here for you, we support you, and we are ready to get you any support that you may need as we grieve through this together. Thank you.
Sheriff, if you're saying hate will not prevail in this community, are you investigating this as some sort of hate crime?
Well, shortly, if someone decides to take a firearm into a school where kids are given an education or entitled to an education and want to harm others, to me it's hateful.
Sheriff, can you talk about the initial interaction between whoever was able to stop the shooter? Can you describe that to us? How did it go down? What exactly happened for us?
Obviously the shooter was armed and our school resource officer engaged him, and the shooter quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer-involved shooting. He gave up, got on the ground, and the deputy took him into custody.
Sheriff, any idea how the weapon got inside the school? And was there any warning that this was going to happen?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, very early, and we're still looking into that, whether or not, or how he obtained it and how he got it in the school.
Sheriff, have you been in touch at all with his parents or his family to learn more about what led up to these moments?
We have.
Any information you can share?
No.
What kind of weapon was
It seems like you have a large Hispanic population. Have you been able to communicate with the people in their language to make sure that everybody knows what's happening?
Yes, sir, I have. The school and our office has people that speak in Spanish, and they have spoke to those folks as well. Yes.
How is video surveillance helping you, Sheriff?
Sorry.
Is the shooter talking, or is he saying why?
The shooter was interviewed, and he was speaking with our investigators earlier, along with the GBI.
How is video surveillance? How does that help you, Sheriff?
It is helping our investigation.
Sheriff, is reports of threatening calls perhaps made to the school prior to the shooting? Is that accurate?
None that I'm aware of.
Were all 9 injured victims shot?
In some capacity, yes.
Sheriff, can you tell us about the 2 individuals and was one targeted?
We don't know of any targets at this point.
Sheriff, what kind of weapon was used? Have you identified the weapon?
We have not identified that at this point. No.
Sheriff,
this is the last question I'm going to take.
Was the shooter a student here? Is there a connection between the shooter and the victim?
None that I'm aware of.
Was this a student here at the school?
I know that you have a lot of questions about the student and that we mentioned that we identified earlier. Keep in mind that that's part of our investigation, that we're looking into every aspect of that individual, his connection here at the school. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he was a student here. So as part of our investigation, we're looking into all aspects, current and prior, involving that individual.
Can you tell us how many rounds were fired? Is a student. Can you tell us how many rounds were fired?
Do what?
The shooter is a student, yes. We do not know how many rounds.
Director, has that shooter had any past history with law enforcement?
For now, this is the information that we have. It is an active investigation. I assure you we do plan to come back out here in a couple of hours. Please make sure you're following the GBIX page. That's where we're going to be putting the updates. If there's anything that's new, we'll make sure that we share that information. It's still very early. Investigators have a lot of work to do. We appreciate your patience. Do expect another in-person news conference out here in the next few hours. Monitor the X page, and we will be sure to update you accordingly. Thank you.
And that's the x.com?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
thought it was like some special.
Now, you just watched the press conference by Georgia officials on the school shooting. This is a still developing story. Please tune in at 6 p.m. for NTD's evening news. We'll have more information then. All right, before I go, quick mention on Wall Street. Mixed down, mixed day on Wall Street. Dow is up 1%. S&P continued yesterday's decline, down about 0.1%, and the Nasdaq is down about 3%. And that's all the stories for today's NTD Business Matters. Chris, Fiona?
That was such a pressing press conference. We learned a lot just now about the shooting in Georgia. We did know before that the shooter was a 14-year-old young man. He's in custody. The director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations is saying that he will be charged with murder and that he will be charged as an adult.
Yeah, that's right, handled as an adult. And just then we did learn that this individual is a student at the school where the shooting happened. We don't know any motives. We don't know how many rounds were shot. We don't know the identities of the victims yet. But as the officials did mention, it's a very fluid and early investigation. So a lot more should be coming out in probably the next day or so.
That's right, really shocking.
In the wake of another school shooting, we're of course reminded yet again of the impact that these events have on friends and families and communities. And as a nation, we must come together and discuss to prevent this from happening again in the future.
Right, and we did speak with Robin Barrow, a former congressional candidate in Georgia, who lives just 30 minutes from where this happened, and his 2 sons were in school nearby. Fortunately, they're safe, but it gives you this sense of how these things, are never too far away. I mean, we've spoken to him, all of us, multiple times before. Don, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, NASA prepares for the Boeing Starliner's return to Earth, but the astronauts are not on board. The uncrewed capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station on Friday.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I just can't. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Thanks for staying with us. NASA held a press conference today in Houston ahead of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft's return to Earth.
The capsule is scheduled to undock from the International Space Station on Friday, just after 6 p.m. Eastern.
With intention, we put them through long-duration space station training a few years ago. And so they've finished all the same training that a normal expedition crew would do. Fully qualified in all of the complex areas, spacewalks, robotics, et cetera. Butch and Sunny have also both done expeditions on board stations, so they're very familiar with what that looks like.
Since the decision was made to undock uncrewed, we have been preparing through simulations, procedure reviews, and that's with the flight control team on the ground as well as the crew on orbit for the activities that are coming in the next few days. As noted, there are differences between an uncrewed and a crewed departure. For this departure, Starliner will do those immediate thruster burns to get up and away from ISS rather than a normal trajectory that has Starliner stay close to ISS. And then,
you know, in my view, they were never really, they're never stuck or stranded. They always had a way to depart the space station. And to me, when somebody is stranded, there's a location where they cannot leave. And so they had Starliner as the vehicle that they could depart from for a period of time. Now the Crew 8 is their emergency return vehicle, and when Crew 9 gets there, that will be their vehicle. That will be their return vehicle for nominal and any emergency. So
the Starliner will land on Earth 6 hours later, just after midnight Saturday at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. In the event of bad weather, backup dates have been set for September 10th, 14th, 18th, and 22nd. Over the course of its mission, the Boeing spacecraft has been experiencing thruster issues and helium leaks. On Saturday, astronaut Butch Wilmore reported strange noises in the capsule. Wilmore and fellow NASA astronaut Sunny Williams will remain at the space station until early 2025. They're scheduled to catch a ride back with the SpaceX Dragon 9 crew. In Hong Kong's Ocean Park, twin panda cubs were born just 2 weeks ago. They have since doubled in weight. Black and white markings are growing more visible on their eyes, ears, legs, and paws as well. Ocean Park video footage shows mother Ying Ying playing with her twin girls. That is absolutely adorable. According to the park, the mother panda spends her day cuddling, grooming, and feeding one cub at a time. An animal care team assists by rotating the cubs, ensuring both receive equal attention. Born on August 15th, the twins made their mother the oldest panda to give birth, one day before her 19th birthday. Ocean Park anticipates that the twin panda cubs could be introduced to the public as early as February 2025 when they turn 6 months old. Australia is going through a boom in horse sports. Industry experts say since the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, equestrian sports are generating a lot of revenue. It's not just country folk competing, city dwellers are also getting involved.
Camp drafting is an Australian sport which involves a horse and rider marshalling cattle through a course to a final gate.
I've been wanting to do camp drafting for a long time. At 58, I thought I better start doing it now, otherwise I'll never do it. The nerves were up, the heart was beating fairly fiercely, but once I was out, you kind of forget all that.
Another sport growing in popularity in Australia is the American contest of cutting. After the COVID-19 pandemic, the value of horses in Australia has increased staggeringly.
Years ago, if we said 20, 25,000, people were like, I'd never pay that for a horse in my life. Now that's probably only half a horse.
Over 5 days in 2022, the nation's largest performance horse sale broke records in Tamworth, with total sales reaching around $11 million. For a lot of people, the performance horse industry was undervalued up until now.
This is an opportunity where they can come to us with a horse, fine-tune their skills and their knowledge of the sport, understand, the safety risks.
To know that this business is heading the right way and the industry's, it's on track for a long time and a big future, it's pretty exciting.
And for some trainers, this means they have full-time careers to support their dreams and their families.
Well, that was a very interesting story. I love horseback riding. Do you?
Have you ever gone horseback riding?
I have. I've tried it a few times, although never professionally or anything like that, unfortunately.
That's one of the many things I'd love to do, but probably will never do.
Oh, maybe on vacation one day.
Maybe.
All right. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom today.
Join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'm Chris Beers.
And I'm Fiona G. See you tomorrow.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House